All right, we're going to go back into session here. James Hobbs. There he is. Ready to go?
Oh, yes.
I think I've got it. President Lundvall, Director Bruce, members of the commission. My name is James Hobbs. I am currently the new Green River Regional Wildlife Supervisor. Most recently, I've just been in Star Valley for approximately the last 9 years. I guess a positive thing with this presentation, I'm just here to present some stuff to you. You're not going to be asked to vote on anything, so that's kind of nice. And hopefully, while this may not be entertaining, I hope that it's interesting enough to keep you alert, awake, and after the good lunch that we had. I don't have anything to throw at you, so if you are falling asleep, we're going to have to think of something more exciting. I brought some specimens from this case specifically. I just wanted, and you're more than willing or more than able to touch or hold or whatever. Just wanted to represent some of the things that we in the department within the law enforcement that we're still doing. This specific case is not singular by itself. We're doing cases like this across the state consistently. And so the wardens in the investigative unit, which they helped immensely on this case, are still working cases like this. And unfortunately, poaching is still alive and well. And thankfully, that's good job security for the law enforcement side. But we hope to be able to catch these and kind of demonstrate this. I think part of this as well is just something to kind of show what some of us do in the field at times. There we go. So I just wanted to show the timeline. This has been a long case for me. I'm really excited that it's basically coming to a close. As you can see on the outline, this case started by just an anonymous, well, not anonymous, it was a confidential informant, actually 2 confidential informants in 2019. So we just started into gathering information back in 2019. If you can see, there's a gap between December 2021 and the 2019. If you remember what happened in there was like the COVID years, and it seemed like we slowed down a lot of the personal investigations at those times. But all the way into 2021, we felt we had lots of information. We started with the social media search warrants that we served both on like Facebook and Instagram. Poachers are great. They always like track what they do, and they've got to like tell about it. In March of 2022, we did some interviews in Idaho, and this was in partnership with Idaho. We actually had, I think, 8 or 9 officers that helped that day. And we were doing interviews in a couple different locations and ended up coming home with some of these racks right here, along with a few others. In April 2022, we did a cell phone account warrant, essentially the iPhone account. We couldn't get into the cell phone itself, but because of a lot of the stuff that they save on those accounts, we were able to get a lot of that information, which was really beneficial. In the later part of the year, like I can't remember if that says September or what it is, but I think it was like August, September, October. We located a lot of the kill sites because we wanted to verify where they were harvesting these animals, so we knew which counties to be able to charge them. In the spring, so March 2023, and if you recall that time period, I remember I was pretty ragged right around then. That was at the end of the bad winter, 22, 23. And I thought it was actually a nice break to go meet with some prosecuting attorneys rather than feeding elk or taking care of wildlife. That was a hard winter. But anyway, we met with 3 different counties, and that was Teton County, Sublette County, and Lincoln County, to begin filing charges on 22 wildlife crimes. These were not all the crimes that we found, but these were the ones that we thought really outlined what we found that was happening. In August of 2024, Mr. Gilstrap, he entered a cold plea in Lincoln County. And then after that, he filed a notice of appeal, and that actually kind of went over to Commissioner Roberts' section that it went into the district court. But in June of 2025, the district court affirmed the circuit court judgment sentence. And then finally, around September, the defendant filed for another motion for a sentence reduction modification, and then the circuit court denied that motion. So I'm going to go through all this just a little bit more in depth with this presentation. and hopefully have some good photos and some interesting stories. So in Sublette County was pretty basic. We had two violations in Sublette County. He had applied for and received a limited quota antelope license. And I guess the main premise of this whole case is this was a residency case. This person was not a resident of the state, and he started applying for and receiving licenses and buying licenses over the counter, but never really lived in the state. He tried to do a lot of things to make it look like he lived here, but he never lived here, at least in my opinion. So he received this antelope license, and then also he took a buck antelope without the proper license. So when someone makes a false statement to receive a license here in Wyoming, even if they receive the license, it's not a valid and legal license. And so then when they choose to take an animal with that license, they're taking out an animal without a valid, proper license. And so I know that was one of the big arguments from the defense attorneys, is they felt that they were getting some sort of double jeopardy, since we were citing them for like purchasing the license illegally and then harvesting an animal with that improper license. So some of the evidence looking at that, so how we kind of knew that he was not a resident. You're all aware, but it takes a full year to become a resident here in the state of Wyoming, not claiming residency anywhere else. He had purchased resident licenses, the latest ones in Idaho, September 11th of 2017, and then obviously applied for and received this antelope license in the end of May. The application that he put in was earlier than that, but he received the license during the license draw. There's a lot of like the search warrant messages that contradicted his residency claims in Wyoming. There's also indications where he killed it, which was in Sublette County. And then interviews with Gilstrap and his accomplice that hunted with him often. They were able to corroborate where he had harvested this, or at least a close area, which was in Hunt Area 89. So this is the buck that he harvested. He was out with this accomplice most of the time. So this shows like pictures he had put on social media, but also just photographs that we found through the search warrant of his phone. The non-resident draw odds are a minimum of 7 points to receive this license, whereas even with a residence, it's about 20% draw odds. And so it's not a guarantee as a resident, but much better than waiting 7 years to be able to get that license. And so moving on to Teton County. So we had several charges against Mr. Gilstrap in Teton County. These first two was he took a bull elk without the proper license. So he bought that licensed in Lincoln County. So that violation doesn't show up right here, but he bought the license in Lincoln County illegally if he wasn't a resident. But he took a bull elk on the 8th of October, and then this was a smaller violation, but he didn't properly tag the animal. But we found that through a lot of the photos that shows his license that he didn't fill it out correctly. We're just trying to document that. And very similar things like the search warrant messages. And I'm going to be jumping around on dates just because, just the different counties. But also the search warrant messages contradicting residency claims. You know, he'd say things like, well, I work in Idaho, but I call Wyoming home. He tells that to people all the time. It was interesting how often he would say that. He claimed in Wyoming to have a permanent and fixed domicile. It basically means a house. You know, we describe that often, that this does not mean a camper trailer. And that where he was claiming residency was like a little single axle camper trailer at an RV park. During this time period, like after we got the reports, I would drive by this little RV park almost daily, since it was on the main road there in Afton. And not once did I ever see his truck. Not once did I see any long-term residents. And also with his licenses, he always put an address of 495 Washington, which happened to be a block away from where this RV park was, which was a parking lot of the local credit union there in Afton. So normally when someone lives there, they normally know their address pretty well, and they'll correct it, you know, on licenses or other things like that. And so that was like, you know, we call that a clue often, you know, in what we do. And it was just interesting to continue to watch him. One thing I can say about this, as you can see by some of these heads, this guy did hunt really hard. Unfortunately, the only time he spent in Wyoming was pretty much during hunting season. We'd seized the bull elk from this one when we did the search warrants in Idaho. It's not this one. This was a later one, also in Teton County. And we also, like I said, we looked for these kill sites, which was, that's kind of I think a neat part of the job. You know, it's good for our case to show it, but it's really enjoyable to be able to find these locations. Sometimes, you know, they share like where they were hunting, so we have a good idea where to look. But other times we just know big drainages, and we were still able to find several locations, which was really neat. Mr. Gilstrap I think he really wanted to be an online influencer. So a lot of his posts were something like this, like from the mountain to the Traeger to the table. Later on, it's like from 10,000 feet to the Traeger. Something that was really interesting with him, and I'll show you later on with some more animals, is he took a lot of pictures, a lot from every different angle and size. And it went over a lot amount of time to where like this is the first one, and 2 hours later he's still taking pictures and hasn't touched the animal as far as starting to field dress it or anything like that. And so on the left is just a social media post for that photo, and then on the right that showed us a good idea where it was. You can see the blue dot, and that was on an attachment that he sent in a message like at 2:25 in the morning to just another friend saying that where he was at. So this is one like he never signed his license. It's required in Wyoming to be able to sign your license. He had not done that. So we have this picture, know the basic area, or have several photographs. So I go back to that one just to touch on it. So non-resident draws in this area, minimum 4 points, whereas a resident, you can buy this license over the counter, which is a big difference. Obviously, the cost discrepancy is big. I think a non-resident license, I think some of the guys here, I don't remember exactly, but it's pushing close to $600, right? Just for the regular non-resident license. Whereas like a resident, we're just in the 50s, so basically 10% of what that other license is. So so you can see the tree in the background, like splits and some of those other trees, and we were able to find the exact location, even with it's a slightly different time of year, so it's a little more green on the right picture, but we could match exactly where it was. Then we were able to find like the rib cage and portions of the carcass at this location. We do know that he had horses at this one, so we were confident he packed out the meat, but we found that not to be true at some of the other locations. And you see that was actually 2 years after the harvest that we were able to find that location. So the third count in Teton County, this was a big one. This was actually a really important violation that we were able to find, because I feel that this one right by itself is what led him to make a plea agreement. With this one, he had forgotten to even buy a license before he went hunting on the opening day. So he killed this bull, and then he got a friend to purchase a license for him and bring it to his vehicle and put it in the gas cap. So you'll see pictures later. It's at 8:30 in the morning about when he killed the bull, and the license wasn't killed or bought until 10 to 11 that same day. And it was like a long, in Alpine compared up to Hoback is where he harvested this elk. There's a lot of evidence associated with this one. We found some really good information. This is the bull that we have here. And part of his stuff, you can see on there, he says #360. I think this bull technically probably scores closer to like the 340 range or in the mid 340s, but still a trophy animal by any stretch of the imagination. He was by himself in this circumstance. The pictures don't do it justice. This was extremely steep, even hard to get horses there. This is another location that we were able to find. And then as I talked about, he would take lots of pictures, so like it took 2 hours from the first picture until he had like the back straps out. Out of all the pictures, which are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of all these different animals, never once did I find any pictures where it was quartered out, where he took the rest of the meat. He gave his thumbs up, he's excited. It was frustrating on that side that, and never did we actually bring forward any waste because we didn't want to try to be able to prove that in court. However, I'm pretty certain it was happening in many of these circumstances. So like in this instance, the top picture is obviously one of his pictures, top left. The bottom picture is one picture that we took to match up in the location. And you can see like here, this is a game warden dog that was not in the office. I want to bring that out. But this was the rib cage, the spine, obviously, and it's hard to tell in this picture, but in that top right is the pelvis, and there's the femur bone with the socket still into the pelvis. For anyone that I know that normally bones out an animal or takes it, they always remove that hind quarter to be able to do that. And so that was left right there, you know, no knife marks on the bone that we could find at all. And just was an example of like the type of hunter that we were dealing with. He was more concerned about looking cool to social media. Also, like this first photo, like I mentioned before, 8:31 a.m. And then you can see like when he purchased the license, which is on the bottom left there, 10:50 a.m. Obviously, he didn't purchase it. It was like an accomplice that he had, which we talked to. He's like, oh, I thought I could buy licenses for my friends. And I told him that's not the case for residents. It's obviously a claim of residency when you buy a license. And so this was amazing that we found this, and this was through, a couple terabytes of data probably that we got through a lot of these warrants. As I mentioned earlier, the Wildlife Investigative Unit was extremely helpful with this case. The amount of time that we have to put into these cases are a lot. As a game warden, just a district warden, we have a lot of responsibilities. We're doing a lot of different things, and to be able to spend the time on cases like this makes it difficult. And the investigative unit was super helpful. I would estimate that between myself and probably just two investigators, we probably spent anywhere from 800 to 900 hours on this case. And it just takes a lot of time, but we were able to I think get a pretty decent outcome. I think it could have been even better, but I think it's pretty decent. So this is just some of the messages, like with this elk specifically, between his partner or his hunting partner and himself. And you can just go down through that. You know, he shares the coordinates, and he's like, "I'm not going to be able to get in there. Sorry, dude." He said that he's going to carry out of the elk what he could, and the head to the truck might be late. And with this elk right here, you see this elk, he only made one trip from the kill site to his truck. And in this circumstance, I can't remember if it says it in here or not, but this is where he said, "Hey, leave the license in my gas cap or under the gas flap, and I'll pick it up when I get out." He needs all the booze. Yes, he was worn out, which I don't doubt it. It was a very difficult place in there, and it was hard to get in there. So I had to give this individual some props because he did work hard for animals. He just didn't complete it, and obviously didn't qualify for the license either. This is also a location that he showed, like the approximate location of this elk. Some of these, this is how we found them. It's like we were able to find this through the warrants, and we went in and be able to find bones. Actually, me personally, I didn't go to this waypoint, but I had another game warden who's actually up now in Cody, Kyle Lash, if you guys know Kyle. And he's just a double tough guy that likes to ride horses. And he said it was hard to get in there. It was difficult. And so we were certain that he didn't pack out all of this animal. Now onto the Lincoln County charges, where this is the majority of the charges. If you've kept track, we've only covered 5 charges. And we're not going to cover all the charges. Several of them are actually residency charges that I'm not going to completely address, just for licenses he bought where no animals were harvested. So with the 2018 mule deer buck, he had the false statement to purchase the license, and he also had the intentional take of the animal without the proper license. This shows some of the evidence we used, like when he bought licenses, when he actually claimed to move in here. When we served the search warrant in Idaho in the spring of 2022, it's a whole nother backstory with that, but I finally told him that we were there to talk about residency, and he's like, "Oh, I thought so." That was his first thing out of his mouth. I'm like, "Well, that's normally a sign." And then I'm like, "How long does it take to become a resident in Wyoming?" And he's like, 6 months. And I'm like, "Double, you're wrong again." So it's nice to allow people to, even if they think they're right, to start talking, because then they're going to tell you some of that stuff. This was in Region G, which is the Wyoming Range Mule Deer Herd. There was interviews that we were able to corroborate the location, but we did not find this location. I know it was in the Bear Traps, which is up kind of towards the head of like Bear Creek, but I just couldn't find the exact location. But the terrain and everything else matches that, and what we could find also on Google Earth. There's some of his social media posts and different things, but you can see again, like, the hashtag big typicals, hashtag Wyoming, hashtag high country bucks. So he's doing all these things just trying to be an influencer. What did I do here? So the non-resident draws that year were 7 points to be able to draw a license, 100% success. Whereas once again, similar to the elk, this is just a resident general license, one of the many blessings of living in Wyoming, that we can just buy these licenses over the counter and be able to enjoy this resource, which is pretty amazing. These were all hunted or harvested. It was harvested on the opening day of the season, September 15th, 2018. Here's another animal in 2018. This was a bull elk. Similar types of violations. One thing that we added onto this one, although small, he never bought a elk special management permit that year, which helps pay for the feed grounds or mitigate some of the costs for the feed grounds. So we thought we'd document that as well. It got dismissed at the end, but same type of evidence. And then we know the location based on the photographs of them packing it out, but we couldn't find the exact location since it was kind of in some deep timber. I personally felt like, felt bad with this one. All right. Because this happens to be in the same drainage right above our patrol cabin that we have in the Grays River. And he killed this elk up there. And so this was just, this bull, we never were able to seize this one because he claimed it was stolen out of the back of his truck. Where? In Idaho. So it wasn't at his house in Wyoming. It was in Idaho where it was stolen out of the back of his truck. This is a pretty cool looking bull. I would like to get my hands on it. But anyway, he shot this bull from, I think, quite a ways away. He's a long range shooter. And it was in a pretty nasty area. When I talked to his partner that had helped him pack this out, he says, never again are we going in there, since it was pretty awful to get it out of there. But he, once again, likes to take a lot of pictures. He's got a nice hat there with the Wyoming state flag on there. This year, like minimum, it was 3 points to be able to draw this. But once again, you could buy it with just or purchase a general license as a residence and hunt basically over the counter. 2019 mule deer in Lincoln County, same type of thing. False statement to purchase the license, and that was at the end of August in 2019, and then take the mule deer without the proper license on the 23rd of September. Similar evidence, just the variety of things that I've mentioned earlier. This one, we didn't find the location exactly, although we had an idea where it was, and our investigator that was helping me on this, and I'll show you in a minute, but he was able to find the location on Google Earth, and we could match up the background, which is Google Earth is pretty amazing to be able to do some stuff like this. This is a pretty neat buck. This is, I think it's this deer right here. He is a place he liked to hunt, since we actually have pictures from several different years in the same drainage. This is in a place called up the Grays. And I'm telling you locations because honestly, anywhere in the Grays and the Wyoming Range Deer Herd, basically any drainage, you could shoot deer like this, depending on the year. This specific year was up White Creek, which was, it's another neat location that a lot of deer hunters go to. A lot of his hashtags again. 8 points to draw that year over the counter for a resident. So this is the picture he took at 8:30 in the morning on the 23rd. It was by about 10 o'clock that he had harvested that buck. But you can see the picture on the left compared to the Google Earth imagery on the right. Matching up those mountains was, and we were certain that he was in there. And he made comments that that's where he was at in that drainage. Thinking. There we go. And so, once again, like I said, just lots and lots of pictures. So like 10 o'clock in the morning, about 2 hours before a backstrap ever came off, I do see pictures of backstraps often, but this was one that he was in there by himself. You can see his pack on the bottom right. I just have a hard time believing that a whole deer is in that pack. Yeah, sorry.
That backpack is right in front of the license plate.
Yeah, we knew what that plate was.
Were you able to tell if that was Idaho?
That was one of the things he did to try to prove his residency, is he registered his vehicle in Wyoming. It's actually not too difficult to get like your driver's license in Wyoming. And then once you have a driver's license, if you have anything else to show, it's easy to register vehicles. Two of the things he used is like, one of the things was like an agreement for the rental, which the agreement which they had at the driver's license services did not even have his name on it. That's the copy they took. And it's like, his name's not even on this. Why'd you guys accept this as a form that he had? And then the other one was just some sort of basic bill being sent to it that has a name on it with an address. So it wasn't that difficult to get those. But yeah, he had this truck and another truck. That's a truck that we watched for a long time. Consequently, when you actually ran who owned the truck, it was his girlfriend that owned the truck. It was never in his name. I think he tried to sneak through a lot of stuff like that as well. I don't think in the pictures, everyone takes off the orange to take a picture. You do know that, right? Commissioner Bell, President Lovebaugh. No, I don't, we'll see in some of these other pictures, but I don't recall if I ever saw him with orange in some of those pictures. But this one, once again, he's by himself, yet somehow he packed out a whole animal. This 2020 buck mule deer, two same violations: false statement and intentionally take the buck without a proper license. Similar evidence, what we talked about in the past. We seized this deer as well. This deer is probably one of the most impressive ones. It's this one right here in the middle. I see a lot of deer, and having worked in Star Valley, I've looked at a lot of deer over the years. And this is obviously a big deer, a trophy in anyone's book. He claimed it scored like pretty high, like in 210 to 220. I don't know if it scores quite that high, but it's a phenomenal deer regardless. This was in a pretty tough location. Myself and the investigator, we actually found this location. It was a big hike. I think we did like about a 4,000 foot elevation change in 9 miles, and we averaged 0.9 miles per hour. And we were tired after that day finding this location. But this is the similar thing. We showed how we found this. You could see just by the antlers there, you could see that big rock up on the ridge. It did not have a point for this. We just knew the drainage. It was a rough drainage where it was at, but we were able to find that exact location. And something that I haven't mentioned till now, first the same thing, the pelvis with the socket from the femur bone still in the pelvis itself. He was by himself on this hunt, wasn't with any other hunters to our knowledge. And at many of the locations, we also found garbage. He was shoving water bottles or knife blades in different places and just leaving bits of garbage. Not a lot, but he was still leaving it. And it's like, it's a water bottle, please pack it out type of thing. This was a really neat area where we went into. It's called Blowout Creek, which you access this from Idaho, and you got to hike way up into Wyoming off like the Palisades Reservoir. But this shot right here on the right, just shows kind of this neat log right there, or the wood with the scenery in the back, and that's something that we found like a couple of years later. Which that picture itself is actually in Idaho right there. Look, he's got orange. But just a lot of pictures again. He just shows like he just takes a ton of pictures. It was amazing. Me personally, I haven't had any cases where someone takes as many pictures as this individual took. 2021 buck. It's this wide buck down over here. Similar stuff. I won't go through all this, but it was indicated that he was in Cottonwood Creek, which is just outside of Afton. There's Cottonwood Lake, if you've ever heard of that. And but that's a big area above Cottonwood Lake, but that's the only description that we had. Actually, let me go back to this one. So this is something interesting. In November of 2020, November of 2021, we were able to submit a search warrant for the cell phone records that showed location data. So we were able to look at the prior 13 months. So basically, and we're only doing like the 12 right here, but from November 1st, 2020 to the end of October, he solely was in Wyoming for only 17 days during that 12-month period, yet claiming residency that he was here at least 6 months out of the year. This is the buck that he killed in that area. That year, it was getting a little bit more difficult to draw. So that year, you had to have at least 9 points to be able to draw, even though it was a general license for residents. And once again, you see his hashtags right there. Hashtag 33-inch typical, hashtag 360 for the elk. So like this buck right here and the bull right there, those are two he harvested both the same year. I don't think it's quite 33 inches wide because part of it he shot and he hit it in the head. And so the skull plate's broken, so it's actually a little wider than what that buck actually was, but still a pretty phenomenal deer. So we had some of these pictures, and we weren't showing these to the public, so we don't ask for their help, obviously, but we had that picture on the left, and I'm like, man, that saddle right there, it's almost reddish in color. That looks like maybe we could find that. So we went hunting on Google Earth. And on Google Earth itself, we're actually able to find that location, at least that saddle. There's just more of the pictures with him from 12:30 to 4, almost 5 o'clock before he has everything packed up, getting ready to go out of there. Just spent a lot of time taking pictures. I don't know, I'm not sure what he did because he wasn't dressing out the animal. So the picture on the left is his picture, and the picture on the right is a picture that I took towards the end of August in 2022. This was also a good location. It took a ways to get up there. Actually, when I came up over that saddle, I was able to glass like about a 30-inch buck that was feeding down there in a similar location that same time I was in there. And about 200 elk just down below us. It's just a pretty nice place. They call this Ace in the Hole, is where this location is. So total of 22 charges for all the counties. And that's kind of how they were separated that out. The other charges, like mentioned in Lincoln County, were almost exclusively residency type charges. He bought like a year that he didn't kill an elk. He had an elk license. He had a black bear license. He had fishing licenses and other variety of stuff. Archery license that was a resident license. So this long process finally got us to August 1st, 2024, which we had a plea deal. And these are the following charges that he pled to, which was an agreement between the county attorney and them. And the primary reason, which I believe, like I said, that they decided to plea is because of that elk we had up in Teton County, which there was no license whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure his attorney said, I don't know how we're going to get out of this at all. So let's try to salvage this. So he pled to 3 counts of the false statement to obtain Wyoming resident licenses and 3 counts of take 3 buck mule deer without the proper license. So those were all in Lincoln County. Part of this plea was that they were going to dismiss charges in Sublette County and in Teton County. So we had only 6 counts we could deal with, which I felt in some ways just didn't do its justice with the quality of the animals that this person had been able to kill, that it removed those from the opportunity from a legal hunter to be able to harvest. However, that 23-3-102D is kind of our big one. This is like the one where it's someone knowingly takes an animal without a valid license. And because none of his licenses were valid, we were justified to be able to charge him with that. The interesting thing about those is they have minimum amounts that they must be fined. So they have a minimum amount that must be fined $5,000, and that they lose privileges for privileges for 6 years. We actually requested more than that, but that's all we got. But you can see those were the sentence that was imposed by the judge. That day we spent a lot of time on the stand actually testifying and answering questions prior to ever doing the sentencing. But he was charged with $10,000 in restitution to come back to the Wyoming Game and Fish, to our Wildlife Protectors Fund. Just a hair under $18,000 in fines to be paid to the state of Wyoming. He had 3 years in jail with all but 3 weeks suspended, and 18 years of suspension for his game and fish hunting privileges. Also, something that's interesting that I hadn't seen before, but he's also a big antler hunter. The judge also said during his 3 years of probation that they were suspending his antler hunting privileges in the state of Wyoming. And we'll see it on the next slide, but that was one of the things they were trying to fight through the appeal. They didn't think the judge could do that. And then also, obviously, forfeiture of all the wildlife parts seized during the search warrant that we did there in March of 2022. So he appealed shortly thereafter, and these are some of the things that he appealed on. I won't read all this, but the neat thing, I think, in our side when we were looking at it, that the appeal didn't relate to anything as part of the investigation or the search warrants, the work that we did. It was only the part of the court proceedings is how some of the appeal that came into effect. They talked about like if the court abused like its discretion in sentencing Gilstrap with the jail terms to be served. Also, there was some other stuff in there that I won't go over. But we also argued that jail time has been appropriate in similar cases. I remember that's something that I said on the stand, like in similar instances, jail time is appropriate, and we've requested it in the past. And then also they talked about the shed antler hunting, if that was abuse of the court power. And so that was, it's always, when we get to an appeal, it's a long process, but finally the next year, June 10th, the District Court of the Third Judicial District issued an order affirming the circuit court's judgment and sentence. So essentially they agreed with everything that the circuit court had done and said that, no, we're good and you're denied. Even with that, there were more motions. He filed for a motion for relief to reduce or eliminate most of the jail time, fines, restitution, and hunting privileges based on his law-abiding life since the sentencing. And he also filed for a motion for reduction and modification and a request for a hearing. And then the state finally filed a response. And then on the 24th of September, this is when this case, in my mind, kind of officially comes to an end. The court stated that they had accommodated a rather lengthy sentencing hearing in the August of 2024, and that it appeared that the defendant was essentially seeking an opportunity for a second hearing, or in other words, to get another bite at the apple. That's what the judge put in the sentencing or the response. And he said that the motion was denied. So that was a good day. Unfortunately, even till today, he's yet to serve a single day of jail time. Hopefully that'll get rectified soon. He did start paying his fines. And so that's good, but those are the 7 animals that we were able to seize. Even the deer and the antelope that I didn't bring were still good quality trophy type animals. And then the 3rd elk, because we did not have. I just want to reiterate again, this is not just me. If I had to do it by myself, it probably wouldn't happen near as well. This was certainly a team effort within the investigative unit and myself and several actually other wardens that helped find locations. But I would stand for any questions or discussion.
Madam President, so thank you for this. Did he actually have a house?
He said that he bought a house. Sorry, just President Lundville, Commissioner Bell. He said that he had bought a house in Afton in a lot of his comments, but the only thing he actually, are you talking about Idaho or Wyoming? So in Wyoming, he claimed he was living in a trailer. It was like a little single axle trailer. In Idaho, he consistently lived with his girlfriend, or he said with his dad. You know, that's where his ex-wife was. That's where he had a couple daughters. From where he worked in Idaho to like the RV park was 2 hours and 45 minutes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I didn't talk about in this. You know, we talked with his employers. We got info from their HR department. Got his work schedule. He was still working 410s consistently. Had worked there since 2014. You know, there's a lot of information. One of the ways that we received information on this, someone that reported it had been ripped off by him, to say it bluntly. He would get people to invest, and then he would declare bankruptcy, and tens of thousands of dollars would disappear. And there were some people that got pretty mad, and that's how we initially got the report on some of this.
Madam President, if I may, what is the investigative unit? You refer to the investigative unit. Is it a particular group of people? Do you form up when there's a case that comes in and you need help and you pull a group together? What is that?
Sure. Madam President, Commissioner Masterson, within the department, we have they're titled like special investigators, wildlife special investigators, where there's normally, most regions have one of them, and there's a unit from across the state. They work on more in-depth type cases that we're working, investigations, and even to the point where they do some undercover work and help other states. States help us, but they are employees of the department, but they are working like full-time law enforcement. So different than the game warden position. So we have several of these individuals across the state. We don't normally mention their names or show their pictures because we try to keep it mostly protected who they are. It's not a huge secret, but we do protect it. And even now they're like, no, don't even say our names, who helped with it. But this unit, they do a lot of good work for sure. And they work for the department.
But you're not, or you weren't a member of it? They assisted.
Correct.
Because I was trying to figure out how you were doing everything you were doing and be a part of that.
Correct. Yes, Madam President, Commissioner Masterson. They help with the big cases. Certainly, I still had all the regular duties as the game warden, and that's why it would have been super difficult to do it by myself. Oftentimes, when we have like a bigger, more in-depth, involved case come forward, it's nice to pass it over completely to our investigative unit because that's their focus and what they do. As wardens, these residency cases, false oath cases, I've always called them, they're great cases, but oftentimes they take a lot of time. I personally feel if we had like 2 or 3 investigators that just worked on residency cases, I bet you they'd keep busy full-time easily. It's something that happens, I think, often in the state. And I think it's a testament more of the quality of wildlife we have, that people really want to say they're from Wyoming and be able to hunt here and be able to get licenses every year.
Thank you.
And I'm kind of familiar with this, of course, but where was he? Was he from Idaho Falls? Is that?
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner Roberts. He was living in Idaho Falls at the time. He's actually from Mud Lake, Territon, if you know that area. He's a amateur, semi-amateur country singer as well. You know, that was some of the stuff we looked at, you know, that there was paper articles, you know, talking about hometown country singer, you know, over in Idaho that we looked at a lot as well. But yeah, he's from right there. Yeah, I could talk a lot more about this case. There's a lot more to it than what I shared, but this is something that's common, especially on areas kind of like Star Valley that are close to the border, where people try to claim residency there and enjoy what we have here, which I'm biased, but I think still the best state to be able to hunt. The animals here are phenomenal, and it's just super enjoyable to live and work in the state of Wyoming. Thank you very much.
Hello, President Lundvall, Director, Commissioners. I am Brianna Ball. I am the Vice President of the Wildlife Fund. I'm here to provide a little bit of an organizational update and touch on some of our 2025 fundraising highlights. There's been quite a bit of change at the fund over the last month. Chris McBarnes, our former president, has moved on into the healthcare sector. And as the VP, I am leading the organization while we search for a president. We are currently accepting applications for the president position and encourage folks who are interested in joining the Wildlife Fund's team to submit their letter of interest and resume by January 30th to our board president. And as you are aware, I previously directed the program Wildlife for Tomorrow, which focused on really evolving that traditional conservation funding model by providing a financial mechanism for those businesses that rely on outdoor recreation to also give back to conservation. You know, as part of natural growth and as part of that growth and that I played in that role, we're excited to say that that program, as part of evolution, will be splitting off and establishing themselves as their own 501c3. And we're really excited to partner with them in the future and get good work done together there. Moving on into some background on end of year fundraising highlights. As we have mentioned previously and presented, the Knobloch Family Foundation has approved a $3.2 million grant to the Wildlife Fund to support wildlife-friendly fence conversions in the Upper Green and Red Desert regions. Funds are approved and released by KFF on a project-by-project basis to support implementation. 2 projects in the Red Desert are already underway using some of this funding, and all fence projects are reviewed and approved by the Game and Fish. When completed, these projects will open up 34,000 acres of habitat for pronghorn in the Red Desert region. You know, we really try to maximize our funds any chance we get to get these projects done. And the 2 projects in the Red Desert were made possible through matching funds from an anonymous donor who committed $500,000 to support these projects in wildlife-friendly fencing. So by deploying these funds quickly and effectively, the fund has really positioned itself for favorable and continued support, and the anonymous donor has already considered an invitation for us to reapply during its spring funding cycle. In addition, in 2025, we were able to successfully obtain funding for 2 of the department's highest priority research initiatives. pronghorn collaring in Northeast Wyoming, and the statewide mule deer research project. And this was possible through our partnership with Bass Pro and Cabela's Outdoor Fund, and we were able to successfully obtain a grant for $200,000 to support the department in those initiatives. Through the pooled migration fund, we've made available $447,000 for habitat improvements, such as wildlife-friendly fencing, invasive annual grass treatments, conifer removal, et cetera, in those 5 priority landscapes, which include the Absaroka Front, the Wind River Indian Reservation, and the sublet bags and Platte Valley mule deer corridors. You know, the goal of the PMF is to strengthen habitat connectivity, reduce barriers to movement, and support the long-term health and resilience of Wyoming's migratory ungulates. The period to submit those grant applications just closed last week, and our PMF advisory panel looks forward to reviewing those applications and getting money on the ground this upcoming year. You know, building off of this momentum and through our strong partnerships, the fund was also awarded a 3-year grant to continue doing this work, totaling up to $825,000 from the Volgina Foundation. So we're excited to continue that PMF work. And additionally, as you may know, that we have the Pronghorn Fund, and that has grown steadily over the last several years, really thanks to Rich and Mary Ginzel. And this endowed fund has now grown to $570,000. I'm really excited to work with our investment committee to monitor that fund's performance over the next year in preparation of being able to begin considering conservative requests for proposals to put that money on the ground and benefit our pronghorn populations. And lastly, just last month, and I think this is really cool, we received a donation of $50,000 from Robert Williams to the Wildlife Fund. And Robert was actually a biologist for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department in Northeast Wyoming. And through his conversations with his family, it's really clear that this gift reflects Robert's commitment to conservation in our state, dedicated his life to it, and also part of his estate. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
President, thank you. What's going to be the relationship with the tourism firm, and how's that going to work with us and that them branching off by themselves?
Yeah, well, we are working through that transition really closely with Taylor Phillips, who is the president or founder of the program. And we're exploring ways that we can match dollars and work together collaboratively to put some of that money on the ground. Last year, we raised about $160,000 to put on the ground through Wildlife for Tomorrow.
Madam President, thank you, Brianna. Is the donation that you mentioned from the gentleman who passed away, the last one you mentioned, is it earmarked for any specific purpose, dedicated, or is it for general purposes at your discretion?
President Linvall, Commissioner Masterson, that is for general funds. Mm-hmm.
All right, President Lundvall, members of the commission, Director Bruce. This morning I'll be presenting 4 commission policies for revision. In pretty much every instance, we just cleaned up the language, and I'll try to highlight some of the more major changes on the slides here so you can see what they are. So the first policy is policy 3F, hunter education. This policy outlines the requirements for the hunter education courses. Currently, we offer traditional and blended courses. So the traditional course is the fully in-person course that's 12 to 18 hours in length. The blended courses are an online portion with a 4 to 6 hour in-person section as well. We added a requirement to take hunter education instructor training for all instructors. This has been happening since 2023. We just wanted to link up the policy for what's currently happening. We added a large carnivore safety training section to all hunter education courses. Also been happening as we just put it in the actual policy as well. And finally, the more substantial changes, we added a section outlining a fully online hunter education option. This participants must be at least 18 years or older to utilize. So that's kind of a major change with that too. And so we're working on currently the curriculum for that, hoping to have that done later this year and be able to offer that course. Next, talk about policy 6D, loan or sale of department photographs, transparencies, and videotapes. This policy outlines the use of department produced materials for outside entities to promote department goals and objectives. We changed the name of the policy to better reflect what's the current asset types we have. So the policy will now read loan or sale of department photography, videography, and all other digital assets. We changed throughout this policy communications education division approval for all use. Previously, this was under the services division. And we allowed the department to review the final product and deny the request if it's deemed unsatisfactory for our goals or objectives if they're using our stuff. Next, talk about policy 6D. Sorry, just continue on to 6D. This also the sale of digital assets are determined by current market rates and the intended use of the material. So the thought process on this one is that if someone was using our material for a documentary that was going to be sold to the public and so on and produce revenue, we'd have the ability to charge a little bit more for it. But if it's educational use, we'd have the ability to not charge at all for it. Photographic prints and media assets are priced on an individual basis to cover the cost of preparation. So basically, if someone asks for a whole bunch of material, we'd be able to charge a little bit more for it to cover our time. Prices are determined by the department based on the use of the materials. And the table of prices charged was completely removed from the policy. So the current table, if you look at the old policy, doesn't make any sense for what we currently do. So we'll just kind of look at each request as it comes in and charge what we think is appropriate based on the use. Require any use of department materials to credit the department in the end product. So we'll have to make sure Game and Fish is credited for that too.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just, this is such a really convenient place to ask a question. I'm sorry, Madam President. The top bullet, you're going to determine the value based on current market rates. Great. Second bullet says you're going to price it to cover the cost of preparation. Those seem to be two different things to me. One is cost and one is what somebody, on the open market would pay. How I'm misreading that somehow. What am I missing?
Yeah, I think it's President Lundvall and Commissioner Masterson. I think that's more, if we just had a bunch of photographs we were going to sell to someone, it really isn't much to do it. We're just preparing those materials and giving them to the person. And the other case would be digital assets can be a lot of different things, full videos, all kinds of different things like that. And so based on market rates for that use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I would personally advocate that cover the cost of preparation and a little something. But I'm with you. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. All right, next policy is policy 6F, discount for department price publications. Very minimal changes to this policy. This policy outlines requirements for the sale of department produced publications. This would be like Wyoming Wildlife Magazine publications. We just changed the administration of alternative enterprises from services division, which is where it was housed before, to communications education division throughout. Alternative enterprises is the gift shop here at the headquarters office and other regional offices across the state. Another word for that. And we updated the payment types that are acceptable. We accept cash, check, or credit card in the policy. Then finally, we have policy 6G, complementary products and incentives. The purpose of this is to establish guidelines for personnel to provide complementary items as incentives to support department programs. That would be for marketing, public relations, and partnership activities. So the changes to this one, we removed the $30 limit for each complimentary item and removed the director approval for cumulative promotional items of $600 or more. Remove this from the policy just because it really isn't necessary to limit the dollar amount for some of these types of activities that we do. We just want to use best practices and use our, this comes out of our budget, so use our budget as well, the amount of money we have for that, to actually make the best use of those complementary items. And then removed the language about promotion of the gift shop throughout the brochures and catalogs. That was in the prior policy. It's not something we currently do, so we don't need that in the policy any longer. So finally, as far as policy revisions go, the department recommends the commission vote to approve the policy revisions for 3F, 6D, 6F, and 6G as presented. And I'll stand for any questions you may have.
All right, we've got some public comment here. Brian Mann.
President Linville, Director Bruce, members of the commission, I want to thank you for allowing me to share some of my thoughts with you today. My name is Brian Mann. I have been a hunter ed instructor in Wyoming since 2012. During the last 13 years, I have had the pleasure of teaching approximately 1,000 students. Reason I know that number is because that's what it was at when I quit keeping track. This includes both the traditional classes and the internet completion courses. The reason I'm here today is to share some thoughts as to why I disagree with the portion of the proposal to allow students ages 18 and over to be certified by taking just the online course only and not requiring internet completion course. I feel this way based on the 13 years of experience that approximately 25% of the 18 and older would fail when they first walk in the door to the class. And what I'm talking about is what we did in our classes is we would do a little obstacle course. And basically this was for us to observe how the students are doing, what they need help with and what they don't need help with. One of them was a very simple thing where we would take a $1 bill and stick down the barrel of the inert firearms that we were using at the time. The idea is as we're doing, opening the action, checking the barrel, make sure that it's empty and everything like that. If they found the $1 bill, they got to keep it. That definitely kept the class going because they were always searching for that other $1 bill. The thing is though, the most $1 bills that we ever, and this was done before we actually started the course, okay? The most we ever paid out of pocket was $6. So that means out of a class of 25, 19 students weren't able to check the barrel properly. So I think that's important that you're not going to be able to pick that up on the internet only, okay? We did firearm handling as far as handing a firearm from one person to the next. And part of that is, of course, when you have control of it, you say got it or thank you. At least that's how we were taught. And some of the people are trying to jerk it out of my hands rather than using the proper, again, that's where the hands-on course comes into play there. Also the muzzle control when people are loading and unloading their firearms. Some of them are scary to be in the room. Okay, put it that way. So I think that's where it's helpful to have that online or the course that they can come in and take that and pick up those tips and practice a little bit with the hands-on. The bottom line is it's really all about safety. And if we can save one life from an accident, it's worth 4 hours of their time to attend. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak. Is there any questions that I can address for you?
Any questions?
Okay.
I just had one question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't expect you to know this number off the top of your head, but in the last, I think you said 13 years that you've taught, did you see more 18 and under, do you think, or 18 and over, or was it a little mix, or
As far as
that we're having issues?
we're having issues, it stayed about the same,
Okay,
stayed about the same. And actually, there were times where the under 18 did better
Than
than
the
a lot
older.
of the adults.
okay,
So,
okay.
okay.
Any questions?
Madam President, I guess I have a question for him. So over the 18, what was the composite? What are they made? What's for the majority? What are they made of? Are they just move-ins or just decided they're gonna hunt? Or why did they decide to take up to hunt an 18 and over? And what brought them?
Sometimes it's just a meeting of new friends that hunted and they wanted to take on the opportunity to do so. That was the most common thing that I heard as far as when you're talking to the students between breaks and stuff like that. So,
Thank you, sir.
okay, thank you.
Richard Oblique?
President Linville, Director Bruce, Commissioners, thanks for hearing me out today. Excuse me. I've been a hunter ed instructor now for about 4 years. In fact, Mr. Mann is my mentor. I owe a lot of my success to him. I've been doing it over 4 years. Last year alone, my team, we took a pretty aggressive approach and we did over 260 students. My other involvement, I've been a youth director with the National Wild Turkey Federation for the state of Wyoming for a lot of years. I was involved with the Wyoming Wildlife Federation for a lot of years. So I'm vested in outdoors and getting the kids out, not just the kids, but adults only. Concerning this proposal, I have to agree with Brian, and I'm not in favor of a total online course. The purpose of hunter education is not only to make individuals aware of everything that goes on in our outdoors, but above all, to do this safely. And removing the firearm handling is a critical step in that procedure. In my classes, I'm seeing more and more first-time hunters. As an example, I have a blended class, the internet course this Saturday, and I have an individual that I've already been in contact with 3 times. He's asking lots of great questions. He's never hunted before in his life. He's 38 years old. And he's going to go out there and he's going to pick up a firearm. Students, a lot, and when we get into the classroom, they're apprehensive about handling the firearms. It's new to them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have knowledge of how the actions work, how to load them, how to unload them. And it's not confined just to a specific age group, if you will. In my experience here lately, especially the last year and a half, we're seeing a lot of moms come with their kids. And because they've now married into a family that hunts or whatever, they're enjoying the outdoors. So there's a lot of apprehension there. And the one way to get over this is sheer repetition. My hands-on firearm in the classroom is already limited because of all the other topics that we have to teach. First aid, bear safety, all these other things. In a traditional class, my classroom gets about 3 hours average, maybe a little bit more. And in our case of our class, we're the only ones in Cheyenne. We do offer live fire with every one of our classrooms and every one of our classes. Okay. But you take that to an internet completion course like this weekend, that time shrinks to even less because I only got them for 8 hours. Okay. So that's a problem. Now with our instructors, it is an instructor's call. It is made abundantly aware to us when we take on this thing. If we don't see them handling safely, we can deny them their hunter safety card. So we take it pretty seriously in our group, and I'm sure all the instructors across the state do. But like I said, the live fire, that does help enforce what we're doing out there. Again, like I said, age and experience is not a factor. In fact, in some cases, the older folks, we have more issues because they're around people who have bad habits. And so we're trying to teach and break bad habits at the same time. And that can be quite a task. It's not, sometimes. One other thing that I hate to bring up, but I kind of need to, I think in my mind, is in Wyoming, you can get a CCW by showing your hunter education card. But the requirements to get a CCW specifically say demonstrate familiarity with the firearm. If you go to a totally online module, that's eliminated. And that raises a whole bunch of other questions that obviously we don't want to address here. My team's goal is, I'm sure, is with other instructors, ensure that anyone attends our classes is going to be safe in the field. And that's why I agree with having required firearms handling as per the current Wyoming Game and Fish Commissioner's policy. There's a separate call out line in that policy. It says firearms handling is required, and I agree with it 110%. To ensure this happens and is more effective, I would suggest that maybe perhaps we purchase more inert firearms. I know in our class, if we can I have a team of 4 instructors. If we are able to, because of other classes that are going on, if we can get 2 sets of inert firearms, that increases the time that the students are handling a firearm, which is really good, because we do stations. We have different things that we do, fence crossings, zones of fire, all these things that just more firearms, more repetition. And we've seen a vast improvement since we've incorporated a second set when we can. Before we go down this road too, maybe there's a way we can collect more information out there from violations that are happening. Are they connected to hunter safety? Are they connected to lack of training? That's obviously something that takes some time, but maybe there's some way we can do that before we, adapt this model. We could add more blended courses if this is something that's coming out from strictly a standpoint of convenience. Because let's face it, we have kids that are being torn in 18 different directions. They got soccer and everything else. Our team, we've embraced this. We have increased the number of ICC classes that we do. And I know I've been asked, and I've gone to Casper to teach one of these classes to help with this issue. So, I think that's a more viable option that I think we could look at. I don't believe that abandoning the model you have now with the traditional and the blended or internet completion is a bad thing. I just think that going to a totally online thing, class situation is not good. I open to any questions.
Any questions for Richard? All right, thank you, sir. Is this in person? It's another Zoom. Okay. Oh, he's in person? Okay. Colton Schick.
President Thunderball, Commissioners, Director.
Hit the button. There you go. There you go.
Okay. President Lundenball, Director, Commissioners. So my name is Colton Schick, and I am the new WWF Civic Engagement Fellow. Just for clarification, President, is this proposing a fully online hunter education class without the field aspect?
Correct. It's proposing that option. Yeah.
Okay. Can I testify now?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So I would stand against this and in support of the previous speakers, just because I feel personally as a youth, I went through the process here in Laramie County, getting my hunter education field wise. And I think there's a lot of value in going through the steps with a mentor. And that's an important part of hunting. Growing up, you had somebody who was there to teach you the rules and just what was expected ethic wise and how to carry out a hunt. And so I think it's really important that you continue to have the field aspect as a requirement, because you don't really get the opportunity to go through and handle those situations when it's just online. That's all I have, and I'll stand for questions now.
Any questions for Colton? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have a couple Zoom comments. Joan Eisman, or Joanne? Joanne? Is she on? All right. All right, ma'am, if you could unmute and let us know if you can hear us. Is it Joan or Joanne? It looks like a couple of you in the audience know. Joan? Joan, if you can hear us, if you can unmute your cell phone. No? Okay, let's try. What about Alan Brumstead? Oh, wait, just
Okay,
kidding.
we've got, yep. It just took it forever to unmute.
No worries. Go ahead, ma'am.
So, President Ludoval, Director Bruce, and members of the commission, my name is Joan Eisman. I have been a Hunter Ed ICC instructor for close to 20 years. I'm well over 3,000 students in my lifetime. I have done the ICC statewide. I've gone to Du Bois to do it, Pinedale. I feel that this is very, very important to do a hands-on gun handling, in and out. Being close to Teton County, I get a lot of people that have just moved here and they're gonna like, oh, we want to go hunt the refuge type thing, but we've never shot a gun or we've never gone hunting. What do we do? I believe Rich said he was online. I have also an internet completion course coming up this Sunday. And I've been on my phone with a couple of the people that are coming. The one lady doesn't know what to do. She's never handled a gun. You know, I try to walk her through it. She's scared of them, but her husband wants her to hunt. I feel my own personal involvement with this and my team, I am a team of 4, that, and the others couldn't be on this call because they were working, that we need to keep the hands-on part of the internet completion course and not go 100% online, as the others have already stated and said some really good reasons why. I have done this for a long time. I am also just recently the ex-state chapter president of the National Wild Turkey Federation, and now I am the assistant VP. But I have also worked with the International Hunter Education in a convention and helped do a lot of the outreach programs with the kids and the different students. And I cannot stress enough the safety factor that we need to endure with this. Safety first. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Any questions?
Comments or questions? All right. I think we're great. Thanks so much, ma'am. All right, let's try Alan again. Alan, are you online? Mr. Brumstead, sounds like you need to unmute.
Did unmute.
There we go. Thank you.
All
The
right.
floor.
President Lundvall, Director Bruce, members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Alan Brumstead. I've been a Wyoming hunter education instructor for 30 years. During that time, I've had the opportunity to teach traditional classes to the general public, as well as in public schools. In 2004, when online hunter education was first offered in Wyoming, I was part of the original group of instructors to teach the Internet Field Day, and I continue to teach those today. In addition to my volunteer work for the Game and Fish, I was a high school science teacher for 34 years, 27 of those in Wyoming. Combining both of those experiences, I've taught somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 students in Wyoming. My goal when teaching hunter education has always been to produce safe, knowledgeable, and ethical hunters. To that end, I do not believe that Wyoming Game and Fish should offer an online-only hunter education certificate. I have several concerns with this proposal. First, my experience as an educator has taught me that when material is just read, very little of it is retained. In online courses, students typically read and retain just enough to get through the quiz at the end of each unit. In essence, just trying to jump through the hoops. Will this produce the safe and knowledgeable hunter that we want in the field? Secondly, from my education background, I worry about the integrity of the certificate. There's no way of knowing who actually completed the work for the course, or if they had multiple devices open while taking the quizzes or tests. Two of the primary segments of the in-person day in the blended course are Wyoming laws and regulations and firearm handling. Having a game warden present the laws and regulations portion is invaluable. The presentation always leads to a broader discussion where students can ask questions and present what-if situations. This type of interaction leaves the student with a deeper understanding of the laws and regulations they need to follow as a Wyoming hunter. This type of dialogue cannot be replicated in an online course. While an online course can provide some knowledge of firearms, there is no way to actually handle the guns. In my blended classes, the prior firearms experience of the students has ranged from none to those who have hunted for several years under the department's mentor program. During the in-person portion of the blended class, students have the opportunity to handle the different firearm actions and practice loading and unloading them safely in a supervised setting. Even those with no prior firearms experience are able to demonstrate safe handling after the hands-on training. There is no online substitute for this experience. I'm presently part of a group working with Katie Simpson on improving the current online portion of the blended hunter education class and standardizing the in-person class time. I ask that you continue to support these efforts and not vote to change the current policy. Taking an online-only class may be an easy way to get a hunter education certificate, but the easy way is not always the best way. Thank you for your time today.
Alan, I think we have a question from a commissioner.
Yes.
Alan, thank you, Madam President. This is Commissioner Bell. My question is, and I think I could pose this to all the folks in here. And first of all, thank you for all the work you've done as a hunter safety instructor and all the ones that are here, new and more older. And so thank you. I took hunter safety when I was 12, and then I was fortunate enough to serve on a county commission with my hunter safety instructor 40 years later. So my question is, here we have this policy in front of us in a world that's not only AI driven, but also going more virtual. And while we accept hunter safety certifications from other states, and now 33 states have an online only version. My question is, if we choose to keep our policy, we're going to have folks that go through that policy that Wyoming has set out, but we're going to also have more and more folks that can't get into a class or want to do an online only class and just do that through another state, and we accept that. And so I guess my question is, how do we juggle that? How do we encourage folks to continue to take I guess a hands-on safety class or something? I mean, how do we move forward with that? And I'd entertain any kind of answer you can give me for that, because I think that's one of the issues that we're dealing with.
And I understand, Commissioner, I understand your concern, and things are moving that way, both in hunter education and in general education. I think I started most of my hunter education work in Jackson, and someone asked earlier about, well, why are these 18-plus-year-old people coming to take a class? In Jackson, my classes were probably 70 to 80% people in their 20s and 30s who had come to Wyoming and had become interested. They wanted to take the hunter safety class, and there was a lot of interest in the online blended class that we have now, simply because as adults, their time, they were able to fit that rather than coming to a 4 or 5 day class, they could fit doing the online portion and doing a 1 day, 4 to 6 hour class was doable for them. I don't know how we go to a point where we say that we can do an online class and have the integrity of it. I guess I'm sorry, that's the teacher in me talking. No matter how rigorous we make it, there's always that opportunity for somebody to be sitting there with multiple devices, going back through and checking things. Other states have said, well, we're not concerned about that, or perhaps they found some way around it. If they have, I don't know. But I don't know that there's anything wrong with Wyoming holding firm to saying, we really would like you to come to a class for a few hours to make sure that you're going to be safe when you're out there hunting on Wyoming lands. And I understand we take the online classes or the cards that have been gotten through online classes from Idaho, I think is the primary one. But gosh, I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for that.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Brumstead? Okay, thank you, sir. Roy, I do have one question. Is the push that we're hearing from people that are requesting this mostly just those that like a work schedule won't permit them to fit the classes, or what are we hearing from the public?
President Lundvall, I'm not sure if I can completely answer that question. I just know that it is more convenient to take a fully online course, and people are doing it in other states currently
Right.
from Wyoming.
Okay.
And so I think it's just more
We
convenient.
probably don't have any stats on like people that aren't able to take it at all because they can't, I mean.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay,
we have that.
that's fair. And then again, I have another question you probably don't have the answer to. Of the other states, then I'm just wondering out loud that have gone to a fully online program. I'm wondering if they're seeing a difference in, firearm accidents or anything like that, if they've noticed it. Again, I'm not expecting you to know the answer to that, but I'm just thinking out loud, I guess.
Yeah, President Lundvall, we looked at that very question as well, and we don't keep stats as far as I can tell, is what I was told. And so even in Wyoming, we can't tell whether someone took a blended course, in-person course, or what when they have their license out there. So it's really hard to get actual statistics on it. And I don't know, maybe there was something from IHEA, but I don't believe there was anything. Okay.
Okay, and that's from like other states that have gone to a fully online and if they've noticed a difference. Okay.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I might, the gentleman that we talked about the concealed carry, could you come back up? If you would, please. I'm sorry I didn't ask this when I was there, but so when it comes to that, it's been a while since I've got my concealed carry, but that's one of the you can get the concealed carry by saying that you have completed hunter safety. And that what you're saying, right?
Yes, President Linville, Commissioner Roberts. Yes, there are certain things that you have to present. There are several things you can present to show that you've had firearms training. DD 214, if you've been retired, there's things if you're law enforcement, things like that. The language reads basically if you're getting training from somebody who has had training or is training you. So the logic there is if we're doing hands-on firearm safety in our classroom, you are getting firearms training. And all you have to do is show your hunter education card.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And that's a big concern.
Oh, yes, it is, sir.
Madam President, I don't know. You asked my question to Roy. I was just kind of wondering where where the push for this going to fully online is coming from, and I understand it's a matter of convenience, and so many other states, neighboring states are doing it as an outfitter and guide for the past 27 years. You know, I see that these other states that we share that reciprocity with for honoring concealed carry licenses, or excuse me, not concealed carry license, but hunter's ed, that fortunately it's the exception. However, some people come with a level, with a course, a certificate of completion. However, they're not competent. And I think that hands-on stuff is very valuable and irreplaceable. And to echo what somebody said earlier, if we can prevent one tragic accident, or heaven forbid, somebody losing their life, I think it's worth it. But again, you know, the world that we live in, we're in a pretty hurry up world. So I understand it from the convenience aspect, but also I think it's really, really hard to replace that hands-on stuff, because there are people that don't know what they don't know. The world that we live in with media and trumping up fear about firearms and everything else, people are hesitant and reluctant to go around them unless they're with someone that is very competent and confident and can properly teach them those firearm handling skills. And so, yeah, I'm mixed on this.
Madam President, thank you. I share Commissioner Haskell's torn brain on this one, because I don't know how you, I don't think anybody could say that it's the same. And there is a certain degree of comfort, if you will, from handling and being there in person that I don't think anybody would ever say you could get online. And I guess, so I'm torn as well. So I have two questions for you. One is, well, I guess just one. To get a Wyoming hunting license, do you need a Wyoming hunter safety class? You do not, do you?
No.
Be interesting if you did. But in any event, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that.
President Lombard, I'll see if I can answer that question. When I first took over as director, I spent a lot of time in the field asking questions, asking our field staff what they wanted to see changed in the department. And this is one that come up a lot. It came up quite a bit. The field apparently is frustrated with not having an answer for those who want to take hunter ed, but no virtual option. And just frustrated that we don't offer an option. So they're instructing folks to go to Idaho and Nebraska. Roy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there were over 250 in this last year that took their hunter ed in our neighboring states because we didn't offer it here.
President Lundvall and Director Bruce, it's closer to 100 is what it is,
Okay.
as far as we can tell, but they're not complete numbers. So that's
Okay.
what we're for sure of.
So again, just coming as a request from our field staff to consider this. There is some research out there. I have talked to many states. Katie is our expert in the room though, but the research shows that the test scores, there isn't a difference between the virtual or in person with test scores. And I do think this is an opportunity. I feel a sense of negativity in the room, but I feel we've got over 300 volunteer instructors. Do I have that number right? Katie's not in yes, so I think I got that right. Who do a huge amount of work. And it's very much appreciated. And if we could take that energy and apply it to continuing to move the needle. So if in-person instruction isn't having the test score difference, what could it have? So could we use this energy for additional things to teach? I agree with all of you guys that hunter ed plays a valuable part, but there's a lot else that goes into making a hunter. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity out there that we should be considering.
Madam President, Does the department have numbers as to what your ratio or percentages of your hunter ed students are under 18 and over 18?
President Lundvall and Commissioner Haskell, yes, I do. Approximately 34% are over 18. And I'm pretty sure I have those numbers right, and the rest are under 18.
Madam President. So those under 17 or under 18 under this plan are still stuck. They still have to go to a course with a field day, no matter what. And it looks like these out-of-state courses also require that. So there's a list of like 23 or 24, 25 states that currently offer it. So it's not like a 17-year-old kid's going to get online, punch through the list and end up with a hunter safety card, come present it here. That kid's still going to have to do a field day through that state, the way I'm reading.
Yeah, President
Most
Lundvall.
of these guys' requirements.
President Lundvall and Commissioner Mai. There are some states that have a lower age limit that we noticed, but it's not very many. I think there's one or two that are below the registered.
Texas is 17, but.
Well, there's one that it looked like it was closer to 9 or 10 from the stuff I was looking at over here. Katie, you could maybe. Could you? Yeah, that'd be great.
President Lundvall, Director Bruce, and fellow commissioners, my name's Katie Simpson. I'm one of the hunter education coordinators for the Wyoming Game and Fish. I've been compiling some data to provide for stats for our Division Chief Roy and for our Supervisor Ashley. There are some states that do allow, they have age gaps. Arizona is a little bit confusing. They allow anybody that's 10 or older to take their fully online course. However, Arizona only requires hunter education for ages 10 through 13. So if you're 14 years old, you do not need hunter education. New Mexico is similar. New Mexico, you do not need hunter education if you are 18 years or older. So it's an age point. It's not a year like it is for the state of Wyoming. In the state of Wyoming, we have a year that cuts everybody off. Idaho is another state that allows young students, and same with Hawaii, but everybody else is around the 16, 17, or 18 category if they have an online only hunter education course.
So, Madam President, just then a follow-up question on those. Do we currently exclude those hunter safety programs from our licensing?
President Lundvall and Commissioner Mai, we do not. We are a part of a reciprocity agreement that all states within the OFWA Compact have signed. And with that reciprocity, all 50 states, Canadian provinces, and Mexico have to meet minimum educational standards. The state of Wyoming adheres to those standards, and as long as all states and those countries are in good standing with the standards, then they meet the reciprocity agreement.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Okay. We have a recommendation on the floor. What is the pleasure of the commission?
Madam Chair, or Madam President, I'm going to move to approve the revisions of the outdated policies as presented by Chief Weber.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? We do have a second. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
I do. And I'll be opposed to that because, I mean, to me, this isn't that hard of a choice. If the educators are saying we need it to have it to make it a better program, for me, we need it to have it to make it a better program. I understand. I don't think that they're doing anything that was malicious or anything. They're coming to us saying, hey, we understand that technology is coming. We understand, but this is a pretty valuable thing that we need to do. So I will be a no for that, and on the hunter education aspect of it.
Madam President, as much as it pains me, I'm going to join Commissioner Roberts. I listen to the people who teach hunter education, and I cannot help but give them a great deal of deference. I don't think anybody's trying to do anything wrong. I don't think anybody's trying to end run anything, but I hear what these people are saying, and there is a huge difference between watching a video or watching somebody on a screen and telling them telling you about firearm safety. And here is a firearm. We're going to practice going over a fence. You know, we're going to practice handing this off. And to me, this is just a bridge too far. I appreciate there's many other states that do this. I get it. I just don't want to join them in that pool. So I appreciate, thank you for the hunter education. The people who do that, thank you. And I appreciate the presentation. I can't go along with the online only portion. I'd offer an amendment if I thought it had legs, but I don't have any indication it does, so I won't. Thank you.
Madam President, so I'm not sure where to start on that, but and I understand everything that was just said, and I would hope that if this motion passes, that our hunters safety instructors continue on as they always have, being the best hunter safety instructors in the world, continuing to have those online field days, maybe even us promoting through Game and Fish, that we encourage that. If you've watched some of the things that I've been involved with, including the task force and things, I've always asked the license selling, folks or license online stuff, and I'm pretty sure that's why Jennifer left. But that, we should have these pop-up screens that say, are you sure that you have everything? Are you sure you want to apply for this area, even though there's 0% chance you're going to draw? But in this case, it could be, we know you have this, we know you have a hunter safety course. Have you taken the online course? Or have you taken a hands-on field course? And if not, would you consider it? Those kind of things. And we have the opportunity through our social media and our online presence and all of our stuff to encourage those things. But what I don't want to do is not pass something like this and have more people who, they may do an online course here, but we can encourage that through Wyoming online courses to do this. We can encourage that. But what we're going to do is we're going to force people to take this course, just, take it some other way. And I just don't think that's the right thing either. So anyway, so I'm going to support this, moving this forward, and hopefully we'll continue to not only encourage that, but try to encourage it even more to take hands-on field courses and a more traditional hunter safety approach.
Other questions or comments from the commission before we vote?
Madam President,
Commissioner.
I don't have any questions. I just, I want to thank the hunters education instructors that are in the room and those that are online for volunteering. I know the number of over 300 sounds like a lot, but it's not. I know that there's certainly more of a demand and need for more in-person classes because that hands-on stuff is extremely valuable. I'm a fan of not mandating things. And so I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt and hope that if we pass this, that people will do their own due diligence and seek out competent courses to become, comfortable with hands-on handling of firearms. I hate to mandate things, but I know that this is a safe thing, and I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt and think that they're inherently smart and capable of making this decision for themselves. So I'm going to support it, hoping that people can do the right thing.
Madam Chair, the last thing I'd add on this is I think the positive of this is rather than sending, 18-plus-year-old people out to another state, to another website to get a hunter safety card, at least if we offer this to them, at least there's still a chance to model that Wyoming content that we want. They'll at least get a touch on that, even if they don't get the hands-on firearm training, which they can avoid through all these other states. At least they'll get some Wyoming content out of this.
Anyone else? All right, just for sake of ease for this vote, I'd like to do a roll call vote, so we're not trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. So we have a motion on the floor as well as a second. So as I go down the list of commissioners, if you could give me a yay or a nay. Commissioner Bell?
Yay.
Haskell?
Yay.
Jolovich?
Yay.
Mai?
Yay.
Masterson?
Yay.
And Roberts?
Nay.
All right, so I have a 4-6 count, so the motion does pass. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What?
4 hours.
Sorry, 42, yeah. All right, Tracy.
Thank you, Madam President, Director Bruce, and members of the commission. My name is Tracy Binkard. I am the editor of Wyoming Wildlife Magazine. And I also have Patrick Owen here. He is our creative director. We're going to go over some changes that have occurred with the magazine. We did a redesign. We'll also be looking a little bit at what we did in 2025, as well as what we're doing in the year to come. Since 2019, Wyoming Wildlife Magazine has been doing special issues, at least one a year. And in 2025, we did a special issue about movement, and that was released in September. It focused on migration. We separated that into 3 different sections. That was air, water, and land. And then it was sent to our subscribers as well as to schools throughout the state. And we included a cool poster that pulled out. We worked with an illustrator to do that. And that's the front and back of that poster. It was fairly large, showed Wyoming's riparian corridors, and gave some information about how those are used in animal movement. Wyoming Wildlife Magazine is celebrating 90 years this year. It was first published in 1936. This is from October of that year. It first came out as the first one was January through March, and it had a sketch of the governor at that time. They got more and more elaborate. So by October, we had things like elk, and there was some floral and scenic things as well. In 2024, we had just over 27,000 individual subscribers. We don't have the numbers for 2025 yet, although each month we did send to slightly more people. So we're expecting that number to be a little higher for 2025. As we're planning for a redesign of the magazine, which industry standard is usually about every 5 years, the last redesign was in 2018, so we were a little beyond that. We wanted to hear from our readers what they wanted to see and what people do like about Wyoming Wildlife Magazine. And we also wanted to hear from department staff. So we sent a readership survey, internal and external. This was done before the redesign in 2018 as well. A readership survey was done in 2017. That one was actually done through a third party, and it cost the department over $37,000 to do that, which we did not have the budget for this time. So we were very fortunate to work with the University of Wyoming. There were some students that were needing a project for one of their courses, and they actually put together the readership survey for us, made some recommendations of how to distribute that and how many people we really needed to submit the survey to have a reliable information. And so that saved the department a lot of money and gave us some good information that we then used in our redesign process, as well as just learning about the people that subscribe to the magazine. So the external survey, we distributed it through multiple methods. This was an online survey. We did offer to mail it to anybody upon request. We distributed to subscribers and we encouraged non-subscribers. So we sent to emails, and that was not just subscribers, that was also through some of the newsletters and things that we have available to us through the department, posted on social media. We had QR codes and URLs available in the magazine and at regional offices on flyers, and sent news releases asking people to submit their feedback for us. And we ended up with 510 responses. Most of those were subscribers, 347 were, 160 were non-subscribers. 3 didn't answer that question, so we don't know if they were subscribers or not. We learned that photography is king when it comes to our magazine. People really enjoy the photos. And we also learned that people have subscribed to magazines or to the magazine for a very long time. 50% have subscribed for 10 years or more. 36% have subscribed more than 20 years. So that's over a third of our subscribers have been subscribing for 20 years or more. That is a really high amount. We did find that subscribers are more likely to say that Game and Fish is credible as a source of information on current conservation information. That was 98% of subscribers said that, compared to 93% of non-subscribers. So fortunately, the public at large does see the department as credible, but subscribers were a little bit more likely to identify us as such. And about 92% of subscribers said that the department is excellent or good at managing fish and wildlife populations in the state. 92%. So that was a big difference from 77% of non-subscribers. Clearly, our subscribers are believing that we're good at managing wildlife and fish throughout the state. And our subscribers have a lot of interests in outdoors. We put some information on there, but you can see not only is it hunting and fishing, but we have a lot of people interested in photography. We have a lot of birders that are interested. People enjoy camping and hiking and all sorts of things outdoors. So it's not only wild or for hunting and fishing. In our internal survey, we learned that Game and Fish employees read every issue or almost every issue. 84% of people who answered said that they do read the magazine on a regular basis. And of those, about 80% said that they read the magazine because they want to stay in touch with what is happening with the department. And this is a good way for them to learn about what's happening at Game and Fish. 96% said that the magazine is good or excellent quality, and 96% said that they think the magazine is very credible or credible source of information on current fish and wildlife information. So with this information, we set out and did our redesign process. And Patrick, our creative director, will speak to some of the visual things, and I'll speak to some of the editorial decisions that we made with that. But it launched here in January, and I distributed some magazines. I felt like Santa Claus going around and putting magazines on all of the tables. So you should all have a magazine in front of you. You can see some really clear differences just from the cover. We've got a new nameplate where it says Wyoming Wildlife. And then we've added so that it has Wyoming Game and Fish on the cover as well, and a really sharp looking white border. We're trying to provide a really modern, clean design with clever use of white space. And Patrick can speak more to why we made those types of decisions. Something we wanted to do is balance the tradition of Wyoming Wildlife. We've been around for 90 years. People really like the magazine, and we didn't want to hurt that. So we're keeping to the tradition, looking back to the past. We even took some elements from past magazines, but we wanted to keep a modern style and appeal to new audiences as well.
All right, President Lunval, Commissioners, Director Bruce, Patrick Owen, Creative Director, Wyoming Wildlife, also Visual Information Specialist for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. First, I wanted to mention a couple things about our core magazine team. So total, we've worked together for 6.5 years. We've designed 78 issues in a row together. And it's been a great privilege to be a part of Wyoming Wildlife's legacy. All of us are from Wyoming. I know, Angie, you mentioned that majority are not, but we're Robert from the west, Tracy's from the center, and I'm from the southeast. So how we came about the visual elements of the redesign, we wanted to make sure that we tapped into the tradition that Wyoming Wildlife has focused on in the past, which includes thought-provoking writing, beautiful photography, photos taken from staff, but also from freelance photographers across the state, and illustrations, maps, and commissioned artwork. This new redesign, we wanted to make it somewhat modern, like Tracy said, but also tap into traditions we've always followed in the past, such as incorporating illustrations throughout the magazine. So let's see what we have here. So these are two of our new sections on the job. And this is actually, first one's on the job. The second one's an example of our features. We moved from 4 features to 3 features. As you can see, it's very simple, straight to the point, not too flashy, focuses on photos and text. We moved the photo captions to one part of the magazine, so it's not so cluttered. As you can see, it just breathes a lot better. Here's 2 of our new sections, Species Spotlight and Lands. I can tell you what they're about. So the Species Spotlight, we're highlighting species in Wyoming that are on the SWAP list, including species of greater conservation need. With the land section, we're focusing on Wyoming Game and Fish Department managed lands. Our first one was Wick Brothers Bumi and WHMA. This one's more focused on infographics, quick, easy to digest information, showing exactly where it is in the state. And on the mule deer spotlight, we show graphs, population trends, quick facts about interesting aspects of the species. And that's about all I have.
Yeah, and just to speak a little bit on the editorial side, we do have some new articles, new types of content. Obviously, we have these that are very visual. I do want to point out that illustration of a mule deer, Patrick drew that, and it's pretty incredible. But we do have a lot of information there that people are requesting. So people said they want to learn more about specific species in Wyoming, and people want to learn about places they can go to see wildlife. So these were 2 sections that we took directly from feedback from our subscribers and non-subscribers and put those in. Also, you can see the little map in the corner. People said, I want to know where these things are located. A lot of the people that subscribe are not actually Wyoming residents. It used to be about 80% were not residents. We're about 50-50 now, so that we have kind of swung that a little bit. But a lot of people that are not from here have visited a couple of times. They might have family here. There's some sort of connection, but that doesn't mean that they know exactly where these places are when we mention a town. I might know where Sundance is, but somebody in Florida probably doesn't. So if we're listing anything like that, we want to have a map that just gives people a general idea of locations so that they can understand where they could go. Some other things that we've added. We've done a case files that highlights some of the work that our law enforcement has done. People were really interested in that. That's something that used to be in the magazine. We've brought that back and revamped it a little bit. Sometimes there were challenges getting information because people don't want to give away investigative tactics. So we did work with wildlife to make sure that we were taking cases and using things that we could actually use, and we're not giving away too much information, but people are still knowing what our law enforcement are doing. And that on the job piece on the slide before is just highlighting some of the careers that are available at Game and Fish. And this is a way that we can really recognize our employees and the people who have been working on the ground. But then it also encourages people to apply for these types of jobs. And this first one was for our game warden, which is a very recognizable job, but we'll be recognizing throughout all the divisions and highlighting some of those careers so that people who might not be in the law enforcement side or the biology side can still know that there's a place for them at Game and Fish. We also reduced the number of or the pages dedicated specifically to news. Some of the feedback we got was that our news can be dated. We do work pretty far in advance, needing to print over 20,000 magazines in a month. So by the time that this got to mailboxes, sometimes having a full page of content, some of the information that was there may be a little stale. So what we've done is we've increased the number, but they're shorter. So it's a full 2-page spread instead of having one full page dedicated to one news piece that may have information that's no longer relevant. And as we look ahead to 2026, our special issue this year that we have planned is for the October issue. We are looking to highlight habitat. That is something that we're still planning, so I can't tell you exactly what's going to be in that piece, but we are actively working on that, and you should see that in October. Are there any questions?
Madam President. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the work that you have done producing this magazine. It's a spectacular piece of work. In a digital age, they get snapped up in doctor's offices. I have a stack in the waiting, in our lobby in our office, and people walk off with them, and it's really annoying. So in my mind, you are the keeper of the crown jewel. And we don't charge enough, by the way. But thank you for an incredibly high quality, well done publication. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Let me have some potty break. All right, we're going to take a short 5-minute break. We have some commissioners that need to deal with some things. So, thank you. All right, it has been brought to my attention that we have lost our representative from the Attorney General's office. We are now down to just one attorney in the room and not two. So no. I don't know if that means we're really going to get some stuff done now, or we're just going to come up with more attorney jokes, but
I'm not gonna clap till we're down to 0.
oh, Masterson, did you hear that?
I didn't see it.
He says it from all the way over here.
That's jolly.
All right.
Sorry, I have to deal with 2 brothers-in-law.
Deputy Chief, take us away.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the Commission, Director Bruce, Martin Hicks, Deputy Chief of the Wildlife Division, and along with me is Ian Tater, our statewide terrestrial habitat manager. Together, we're going to come talk to you about the future of mule deer management for the state. Ian's going to talk about the mule deer initiative that just wrapped up after 10 years And then I'm going to build on that and talk about something very exciting to us is this future of how we're going to manage mule deer through this mule deer conservation strategy. So with that, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ian.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon. President Lundvall, members of the commission, Director Bruce, I'm pleased to be here today to talk about mule deer conservation in Wyoming. I've spent a fair amount of time before you over the last 10 years talking about mule deer conservation through the Mule Deer Initiative. As you can see here, we've been working on the Mule Deer Initiative for quite some time. It was initially adopted by the commission in 2007. And then we revised it again in 2017. And really this was an effort enacted through the department to explore solutions to challenges impacting mule deer. And through that, we had some associated funding through MDI to the tune of $500,000 a year from the commission. And as of last year, we were through 10 years of that funding, and we were able to do a lot of good things on the ground. You'll see here in a second all the good things we were able to do. So over the course of those 10 years, we impacted over 230,000 acres. We impacted 20 mule deer herds, and we did quite a bit of stream work and a whole bunch of fence miles. Over 200 miles of fence was improved for permeability for mule deer, also obviously for other species as well. So what did that amount to for funding? A total of $50 million was put on the ground through your generous contributions and the contributions of our partners. 45 million of that came from our partners, a little over 5 million from the commission. And that money, just so you know, was matched over 9-to-1. So for every commission dollar, there was over $9 coming in from outside sources. Really an incredible success story. And so wanted to tell you that story and remind you of that story because now we've gone through that to tee up what's coming next, right? We were able to do quite a bit of work and really make, I think, a meaningful difference for mule deer. But have we changed the trajectory for mule deer? Likely not. And so what does that mean for us who think about this an awful lot? It means we need to expand the scope and scale of our efforts. And really that's what we're going to talk to you today about. We've been fortunate to do a lot of great work, like I said, but our future conservation strategies are going to build upon what we started with MDI and really take it to the next level. And so that is our goal today, to talk to you about all the great things that you can see here we were able to do over the last 10 years and more. Let's be to be frank, we've been doing this for a very, very long time. We've had funding associated with it for the last 10 years, but we're going to continue to do all of the great work you see here on the screen: aspen work, juniper work, collaring work, invasive annual grass treatments, beaver dam analogs, beaver relocation, prescribed fire, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to continue to do all those great things, just at hopefully a greater scale. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Martin, unless there are questions about previous efforts. I think this is a great transition time to be able to talk about where we're headed next.
Madam President, he said, unless there are questions. So I'm going to ask a question. It's going to sound like I'm really picking on you, but I need to be able to answer this question to people I talk to on the street. So I tried to figure out a really cool way to ask this, but I can't. So it's late today. You talked about in your PowerPoint, 20 mule deer herds have been improved. We have a whole bunch of acreage, almost more than 250,000 acres improved through habitat projects, but we haven't changed the trajectory. So how do I make the case to someone that we're improving things? What do I show them? What do I tell them? What do I point them at to say, no, we really are. And here's what I can show you to prove that this is making a difference. This is why you should give us $10 million.
President Linval, Commissioner Masterson, what a great question. It really is. You know, and the answer is going to be pretty nuanced, right? So over the course of the last 10 years, I can tell you we've accelerated the pace at which we have collected information that helps us make better decisions. As part of MDI, to give you an example, we have had 12 research projects that were hyper-focused on mule deer movement, connectivity, those sort of things. And so right now, we have a lot better information to put conservation on the ground. So that's the first thing. We have, by spending the dollars that we did, we now have access to better information on where to prioritize actions on the ground, such as cheatgrass treatments, fence retrofitting, being able to identify areas on the landscape for aspen or sagebrush work. All of those are things that we've learned over the course of the last 10 years. And so that investment is now paying off from a research standpoint. From an on-the-ground standpoint, again, it's nuanced and it's only in certain places. And that's part of what has been a challenge for us is really we've spread this out across 20 herds, but there's been a much more focused energy around about 10 herds. And so if you look within those 10 herds, you'll see that we have increased body fat within some of those areas. Now, whether that was a direct result of the actions we did or not, I can't tell you for sure, but I can tell you that some of those herds after the bad winter are performing pretty darn well right now. And so it's a really hard question to answer, but that's the best I can do for you today.
Appreciate your answer.
Thanks, sir.
Don't go away. Madam President, I do have one question for you, Ian. It looks like over 10 years, you know, that I'm looking at your one slide and I don't have a slide number, I'm sorry on it, but you say MDI project successes 2015 to 25, so 10-year period. $50 million spent, $45 million of match awards. Where's the money coming from? So for 45 and 5, right? What's the 5 and what's the 45?
Yes, President Linval, Commissioner Mai, that's also a good question, and we didn't go into a whole lot of depth on that, and so I can cover that. So about $5 million came directly from the commission to the tune of 500 or so thousand a year, and so that's 10 years worth. That's $5 million. $45 million came from our partners, great partners from across the state. Federal partners are a pretty big part of that as well. So BLM, Forest Service, NGO partners, Muley Fanatics, Mule Deer Foundation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and others. So really it's a combination of sources. And then we also have some big funders like National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the Wildlife Fund. I know I'm leaving out lots and lots of others, but really it's a combination of sources that come together. Typically we have about 5 funding sources per project, not counting our own funding. Those are outside funding sources. Yes. Thank you.
Madam President. So thank you for all of this information and answering these questions. I'm wondering, so we have a project like MDI that's a 10-year long project. I'm wondering, instead of compiling all of this data and then sharing it at once, as it goes, are you sharing some of this? So like to Commissioner Mai's question, are you sharing some of this information with to show who's partnering, who's supporting these types of projects? Because we just had a presentation about the Wyoming Wildlife Magazine, 10 years, that's 120 issues. Could because people are interested in this kind of stuff. What kind of things are going on? What kind of projects are being worked on? And I certainly don't want sensitive data to be shared, but I think some of these things can be shared as the projects are going along to garner more support, but also to maybe even invite more people to be involved and you know, to encourage you guys. Is that something that takes place?
President Linval, Commissioner Haskell, it absolutely is. And so I'll give you a couple examples. So you saw the special edition this year is going to be on habitat. I believe it was last year, the special edition was on mule deer. And so through the course of the magazine, as an example, we were able to highlight a heck of a lot of the work that we have been able to do through the course of a year, whether that's through our social media programs or the magazine or through any of our other ways of communicating with the public. We are doing that. Now, is that to say that we're doing it, perfectly? Likely not. Our folks are really focused on the on-the-ground aspect of it, and we've got a great communications team that's helping to tell that story. I think we can probably continue to tell it in new and different ways to do exactly what you just said, to bring more people to the table.
Okay, Madam President, members of the commission, Director Bruce. So let's get down to what we want to do going forward. And this is this mule deer conservation strategy. We're looking at using this strategy for guiding our actions for at least the next 5 years. And what this strategy does is identifies priority areas. I'm going to talk about 3 priority areas to you very quickly and provides a coordinated and statewide approach. I did hand out the draft form of this strategy plan to you guys while during break. It is in the process right now being reviewed internally and by our external partners. We want to make sure we are not missing anything that we have in there as we go forward with this what you'll soon find, I think, a very aggressive plan. As Ian mentioned, the MDI focused mainly on 10 herds. We want to focus on all 38 herds in the state. And that's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, not only internally, but as Ian mentioned, we are going to work more substantially with our external partners to pull off what I'm going to show you folks here in a few minutes. I also like to thank, before I dive into this, a real quick thanks. Ian was instrumental in this along with Deputy Chief Benfit, but we couldn't have done this without Rihanna Jakopak. She's our Wildlife Policy and Legislative Affairs Manager. And Emily Smith, she's our Media Marketing Specialist. If they left it up to Ian, Dustin, and I, you'd have a lot of words and a couple stick figures. So they're able to take this and make it like a professional document, which is what it needs to grab the attention of folks. So I just want to say thank you. And I want to say a special thanks to Director Bruce. She gave us the vision and the latitude to come up with this strategy plan. So thank you, Director. So as I mentioned, there's several strategies, 3 strategies. First is we're going to conserve intact habitat through coordinated landscape scale approaches. The second, we want to improve habitat by increasing food and availability and connectivity. And third, we want to support the foundation of mule deer conservation. Okay, so to conserve intact habitats, there's 3 tenets of this priority. The first is to develop statewide, cross-jurisdictional developmental policies that value intact, high-quality mule deer habitat. In other words, we want to continue to work with our partners to balance the needs of mule deer with industry that is crucial to the state's economic success, right? We value industry incredibly. We want to balance those needs by implementing siting policies that are appropriate, that focus on appropriate high-value habitat during that initial siting process. If we do that early on, we can maintain high-quality mule deer habitat and continue to develop industry in the state. The second tenet is to develop land use plans, travel management plans, and recreational plans that are aligned in how they value and conserve habitat. In other words, we want to align efforts to maintain the integrity of high-quality habitat across local, state, and federal levels to support landscape scale conservation of mule deer habitat. And third, this is where we start talking about what it's going to take to pull these things off, is we want to secure $50 million annually to conserve habitat by keeping working lands working. In other words, we want to work with private landowners who have an interest and are willing to meet with us to do what's best for mule deer. And we know what mule deer need. We need wide open spaces. They need to be able to traverse across the landscape without any impediments. And if we have willing landowners that want to do that and put their properties in conservation easements, we want to be able to have the funding to do so. Okay, the second priority is to support mule deer conservation. The three tenets of this, the first is increased partners' use of our statewide habitat plan. So our plan outlines priority actions to conserve and improve high-quality habitat and identifies priority areas to implement those actions. We want to continue to use our statewide habitat plan to drive this as we go forward. Second is to develop creative, flexible, and ready to implement funding mechanisms. This is going to take more effort, more manpower, more funding. So we want to work with our federal agencies and partner with industry to develop dedicated funds needed for equipment, supplies, and personnel time to pull off these habitat projects. We want to continue to build on the success of Wyoming's conservation approach by convening a mule deer summit. How we envision this is to bring in directors of state and federal agencies, along with on-the-ground experts and decision makers that would provide the opportunity to learn from each other and develop coordinated and strategic priorities to implement. I can see this as a way to kicking off the implementation of this plan. And then fourth, we want to secure $2 million annually for additional research and monitoring. As Ian mentioned, we've learned a lot over the last 10 years, not only with the herds we've looked at, but with our focal herds. We have 5 focal herds, or year 4 of 5. We learned a tremendous amount what those deer do by seeing exactly where they move, what they need, how they need it. This information is going to help guide our managers to make better management decisions. The third is to improve existing habitat. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is the big funding request. And I want to be perfectly clear. This is not funding we were requesting from the commission. This is funding we would need from our outside partners to help implement these projects that I'm going to talk about. So the first, we would need on an annual basis, $75 million to treat 1 million acres impacted by invasive species. We know that there's over 16 million acres impacted throughout Wyoming by invasive annual grasses. We have done a very good job of trying to get a handle on those, but it's growing out of our control. We need more funding to help treat those acres on an annual basis to get ahead of the curve. We need on an annual basis $15 million to expand routine habitat management efforts and add an additional statewide habitat crew. We've become very proficient on how to remove junipers from shrub stands. We're very good at enhancing riparian areas, enhancing sagebrush habitat areas, restoration and aspen stands. We're good at that. We know what we need to do. In order to do more, we're going to need more boots on the ground to accomplish these tasks. We need $15 million annually to convert 500 miles of fence to wildlife-friendly standards. As Brianne from Wildlife Fund came up and did an excellent job talking about, we need to be able to let mule deer, any big game species, to move across the landscape without impediments. We need to continue to focus on removing those barriers so those deer can access their seasonal ranges year round. And we also need $50 million annually to implement high priority wildlife crossing projects. These are projects like Nugget Canyon, things like I-25, KC to Buffalo, where we have demonstrated that these barriers are impeding what these mule deer need to complete their life cycle. If we can remove those barriers and get them to their seasonal ranges, to their summer range, to their winter range, back and forth, we've demonstrated that we can do that. It just is very expensive to put in overpasses and underpasses. And through various efforts, we have identified several projects already, and they're just backlogged because of the funding. To continue on with existing habitat priorities, we want to improve the ability to implement habitat improvement projects by streamlining the permitting process. So a great example of this is the Federal Council of Environmental Quality has already been working to simplify the NEPA process. If you can simplify the NEPA process, you can get projects done in a more quicker fashion on federal projects, federal lands. We support those kinds of efforts. And we also support restoration work through laws, policies, and capacity. And what this means is anytime you go and have large landscape changes to or have disturbed areas in a large landscape area, we want to be able to, instead of going in those areas and reclaiming them with seed mixtures that are basically there to present soil erosion, we want to go ahead and restore those areas with native seed mixes. Those native seed mixes are very expensive, but if we're going to disturb an area, an important mule deer habitat, we have to put it back into the same way it was before the disturbance. So those are the three strategies. Now I'm going to transition and talk about what we've invested on in the past and how we can use this to going forward in the future with this management strategy. So these 5 tenets I'm going to talk about individually here in the next couple slides. So the first, we want to maintain habitat functionality. And what this basically means is the department will consult with developers regarding activities in important habitats. So when this is done early in consultation process with our habitat protection program, we can identify the opportunities and maintain habitat's functionality. And those are the 3 main things that we want to focus on: migration corridors, spawning areas, crucial winter range, when we're making these comments. We want to continue to capitalize on leveraging funding for on-the-ground projects. So Ian just talked about the success of MDI. Again, it did not change that trajectory of a population decline, but I can say with confidence that it certainly slowed it down. Okay, and we certainly need to do more work. So let's continue to build on what we did. 9-to-1 match is phenomenal for funding, and we want to continue that going forward. We want to use this momentum to continue funding projects with partners that align with Wyoming Game and Fish statewide habitat plan. We want to continue innovative partnerships to conserve habitat. A great example of this is since 2022, USDA, United States Department of Agriculture's Natural Resource Conservation Service, has a migratory big game initiative. And this provides funding to conserve more than 700,000 acres of private land by placing them into conservation easements, some into perpetuity. So we need to continue to capitalize that if we want to maintain quality mule deer habitat. We're going to continue cross-agency collaborations to improve connectivity. We're going to continue to focus on connectivity with YDOT and its partners. Since 2008, all the department and all the partners have invested over $91 million. That's resulted in 36 underpasses, 2 overpasses, and 70 miles of high fence. We want to be able to continue doing that. We want more Nugget Canyon projects. We want to see the Kemmerer project to fruition, which should be done in October of 2027. We understand the importance of these projects, but we're going to need funding to do these projects. And then finally, we want to use plans and policies to support conservation. We want to use things like our statewide habitat plan that prioritize habitats based on crucial ranges, on restoration areas, and connectivity. We want to use plans like the State Wildlife Action Plan that is in the process of being completed. It'll be done in 2027. And that is where we will be able to get federal funds to assist with needs for species of greatest conservation need. And we just put mule deer as a species of greatest conservation need. So we will get federal funding to help us with habitat projects to conserve that species. We want to continue and build on what we did in 2017 with the Wyoming Wildlife and Roadways Summit, where we identified over 240 areas throughout the state that we need to work on connectivity. We need more overpasses, underpasses throughout the whole state, and so we want to continue to work on that. And then we also want to continue to use the Wyoming Mule Deer and Antelope Migration Corridor Protection Executive Order. Where we can identify or possibly designate corridors, we will continue to do so. So what's next? Today, what we're doing, we're garnering support from local leaders and partners. As soon as this draft is finalized, which should be early February, we're going to distribute it to all of our partners, to legislators. We need to get the word out. Okay, this is a huge ask, 155 million annually if we want to make some kind of impression on mule deer populations. We'll continue to work with stakeholders on implementation of the strategy. That's an ongoing thing. Again, it's going to take a lot of collaboration, coordination, not only what we've done with MDI, but even further beyond that to pull this off. And then we also need to identify opportunities to secure funding. Again, 155 million outside funding is what we're looking, but we are also investigating the possibility of possibly coming to you in March for the FY27 to see if there's possible to put in some funding for seed money to match our partners. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Madam President, it seems like a really modest, easy lift. So I don't really see any issues involved at all. I really do appreciate what you are doing, and thank you for giving me something I can wave and talk to people about. And I know we've been trying to get there, but it's great to be there now, where I can trumpet things. So I guess my first question is, who's in charge? Who gets to lead the parade and try to I did some quick math. 16 million acres of cheatgrass in Wyoming. You had a slide that said 75 million to treat 1 million acres. So all you need is $1.2 billion to treat 16 million acres. Commissioner Roberts has a platinum American Express card. We can probably float you that. But will it be you? Or who gets to try to push this through?
Madam President, Commissioner Masterson, that's a great question. Who drew the short straw? It's going to be a collaborative effort, obviously. Sure. Wildlife will be taking the lead on this, but there is a lot of work outside. Mule deer, we certainly manage the animal, right? But we need all the partners to manage where they live. And so that'll take an effort from us. I can see this summit possibly kicking this off and giving us more clear direction on how we want to do this. But that, I cannot be very, very clear at this point. I apologize, but Wildlife Division will be taking the lead, and it'll fall on Ian and mine and Deputy Benfit's hands to see where we go with it.
Yeah. Don't let Benfit meet with a donor. It'll be bad.
We try to keep him in his place when possible.
Thank you. I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
President Lundvall, Martin, I'm going to chime in. That's an excellent question, Commissioner. And in the past, of course, everybody turns to the department because we manage mule deer. So it's a natural fit. But also we have so many other groups, NGO groups. I've been working with Western landowners the last couple months on ideas. Our federal agencies who want to do something, legislators who want to do something, and they're all wondering what that is. So we believe, as having management authority over mule deer, we should say what is needed. We should say what that is, even if we aren't the ones who have that authority to do some of this. Right. But clearly lay it out, what it's going to take. So all those other partners and folks who are interested have something to grab onto and promote and go after.
Thank you.
Madam President. Thank you for all of this, Martin. This is fabulous stuff, and I'm very optimistic and hopeful for the future of mule deer because there's a lot of work that's gone into this, obviously, and a lot of partners that I think are waiting to be able to help and contribute. In looking at the one slide, I think it was page 17, maintain habitat functionality. You mentioned in their fawning areas, and me being an old coyote hunter, I thought about what sort of help we can get in focusing on predators in those fawning areas. And I remembered in our July commission meeting, Jerry Johnson from the ADMB came in and requested additional funds from the commission, $200,000. And I was looking back through that, and it looks like there's a lot of projects that are going to be going on to help with certain mule deer herds and focusing on these fawning areas. With that, do you anticipate even increasing those efforts with ADMB, other NGOs to, give these mule deer some reprieve a little bit in these fawning areas from predators?
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Haskell, my favorite topic is predators. So we'll see what we can do here. Absolutely, we'll continue to work with ADMB to use those funds that are allocated. We have a request in FY27 for those funds again. Where we've used that in the past is where we've seen herds with low fawn production and poor habitat conditions. If we can go in and work with Wildlife Services to go in and make a dent in those predator situations, absolutely, we'll continue to do so.
Again, Madam President, I've spoke to some people that live in the Cody area, and they talked about some funding that they did and helped really hammer on some coyotes for a few years there. And I believe they saw a pretty significant increase in their fawn crops. I think as much as 80%, but I could be misquoting that number, but it went from like 20 up to almost 80% just from a few years of focusing on that. So if you can speak to that or correct me on my numbers if necessary, I think that's something that needs to be brought to light, and more people need to be made aware of those kinds of projects because they're very helpful.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Haskell, I could not correct you on that number. I do not know that number off the top of my head. I do know where we've worked with Wildlife Services and gone in and removed predators, particularly coyotes in areas where fawn production has been low. We have and we'll see a slight bump. That estimate I'd have to double check. I couldn't verify that.
Madam President, now it goes, where's the railroad in all of this? When we talk about crossings and we talk about all this different stuff, how come the railroad's never involved in that? Is it something we can't touch or something that, because when you talk underpasses and overpasses and things for wildlife, railroad is always never mentioned. And it's always kind of bugged me that, they're a huge part of this too. As far as I'm concerned, living around railroads for a long time. So, do they have money? Do they get something that they could come back to help? Because they don't help with connectivity. What? Just curious because they don't, I don't hear anything from solar people. I don't hear anything from wind people, and I don't hear anything from the railroads and insurance companies too. Large insurance companies. Where are you at?
That's what I was, Madam President, that's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Commissioner, was all the stats we have for all the damage and all the accidents and people injured, killed, car damages, and where are the insurance companies when it comes to crossing? It's a mystery to me. So I have no answer for you.
Madam President, Commissioner Roberts, I think this strategy is a great way to open the door and tackle those kind of situations we haven't worked on before and have those conversations. That's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, railroad, do they even report how many wildlife that they hit, or do they do anything? I don't know. Are they in a different country, or I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough about it, but man, I've seen some things hit by railroads, but call me naive, but I don't know.
President, if I can chime in here. Commissioner Roberts brings up a great point. We've attempted it in the past and that door has been shut pretty hard. Very difficult to work with. But that doesn't, it is an issue. And we can maybe take that feedback and recognize those possible partners in this. Insurance companies, we've worked and reached out there too. Again, not with any success, or you would be hearing about it, but definitely should be a player at the table.
Thank you, Director. I'm just thinking that, is there any way, I mean, God forbid I'd say the legislature to weigh in on this, but I say that with very, well, but is there any legislation that they could help with reporting, or they don't have to? I know this, the good commissioner from Casper, the epicenter, is shaking his head. No. Thank you.
That's simply my opinion. I don't think that the legislature at this moment in time should be looked at as a productive source of funding for efforts such as this. How'd I do?
All right, so we have one public comment on item number 14, Megan Riley. You have the floor.
All right. Thank you, President Lundenball, Director Bruce, members of the commission. My name is Megan Riley here on behalf of the Wyoming Outdoor Council. I mostly just wanted to cheerlead this effort a bit and express our appreciation for the multi-pronged comprehensive approach the department is taking. And in particular, we are really glad to see the emphasis on conserving intact habitats. I think we've all heard that little chestnut, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it's really true. It just costs way less time and money to keep habitat intact to begin with than trying to turn the tide after things get degraded. And these animals really need quality functioning habitat more than anything else. I think it's the most valuable thing we can give them. So we do have tools in the toolbox to protect habitat. They're on the books now, but we could clearly use more and tools that can be implemented more quickly. So as the department moves forward with this strategy, we are excited to offer our support and help find ways to see cross-jurisdictional widespread adoption of guidelines taken up by many parties that keep mule deer on the landscape. So thank you for listening and the opportunity to comment.
Thanks.
All right. Any other public comment? Okay. All right. Andrew. Ready? You have to hit the button. Yeah, there you go.
Got it. Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the commission, Director Bruce. My name is Andrew Juanidis, Executive Director of Wyoming Agriculture in the Classroom. Here today to talk to you and give you a little bit of an update on our organization. We're celebrating 40 years this year, which is an incredible milestone in my opinion. We were started in 1986 under the Department of Agriculture. In 2011, the organization split out from under the Department of Ag and became its own 501c3 nonprofit. Today, we still stand as such. Our mission is to develop students' understanding of Wyoming's vast resources in order that they become informed citizens, capable of serving as stewards for Wyoming's future. We provide natural resource education through supplementary elementary curriculum. Under our organizational umbrella, we have one product and a couple programs. Our main product is WYO Wonders curriculum, which I'll go into here in a little bit. Our oldest program of such is Bookmark and Beyond. We're getting ready to celebrate 32 years this year. We've averaged roughly 1,600 bookmark submissions from elementary kids around the state since 2020. And almost every sitting governor, as far as I know, has supported the program. Governor Mark and First Lady Jenny Gordon have hosted us at their residence the last couple of summers. It's an incredible opportunity for kids from around the state to bring their families and educators to the residence, something that most kids in this state don't, and adults really don't get an opportunity to do, right? And then we also have an Educator of the Year Award, which we honor an educator who exemplifies natural resource education. We're almost about 25 or so years into that. Last year, we honored an educator, Neil Long from Lander, fourth grade educator, who's very dynamic. We also pride ourselves in professional development and educator workshops. So what is WYO Wonders? WYO Wonders is our natural resource supplementary curriculum. It's state standard aligned, built for grades 2 through 5. It provides lessons for 3 subjects: agriculture, minerals and energy, and outdoor recreation and tourism, our core heritage industries here in Wyoming. Each subject has lessons for each grade available in print or online at wyowonders.org. It's easy to use, and best of all, it's free. It's free because of donor support. We have incredible philanthropic support around the state, and we're very lucky for that. We have a team of 10 people right now, 3 education advocates. They split the state into thirds, and they're all former educators. We have over 70 years of in-classroom experience on our education team. We have Darcy Peterson, who resides in Pinedale, who handles the western half of the state. We have Carolyn Jacobs, who lives in Casper, central part of the state. And we're currently hiring a vacant role here in Laramie County for the eastern portion of the state. Our Director of Education, Dallas Myers, lives in Lander. So we cover the state pretty well. We have a large spread, and we handle that pretty well. Making an impact, so the need. So I did not grow up in one of these core industries. I grew up here in Cheyenne in the car industry. I went to Hobbs Elementary School, McCormick Junior High School, Central High School, and UW, but I was not taught anything about our core heritage industries. I was familiar with certain things. I knew about cattle. I saw sheep sometimes here in Laramie County. I knew about oil, petroleum. I didn't know anything about mining. I was very familiar with recreation, growing up skiing and hiking, and tourism, obviously frontier days, going to Yellowstone, stuff like that, right? I saw wildlife, luckily here in Laramie County, but I was never taught anything about these core heritage industries, and that drove me to take this job in October of 2022. And I firmly believe every child in this state needs to learn something about our industries, right? And the basis of the pinnacle would be obviously if we can retain some of our students here in this state to work in one of our industries, right? Worst case scenario, we just have wiser adults, right? Having knowledge of our industries that are the backbone of our state's economy. WYO Wonders, our curriculum, begins to help youth connect the dots around the interconnectivity of Wyoming industries, the need for environmental stewardship across all natural resources, and the need to understand that collaboration in communities is necessary and possible. In March of 25, we released a 2-year strategic plan to help guide us. It's kind of our internal Bible to make sure that we're on track and have the trajectory that needed to last another 40 years, right? We're focusing heavily right now on building a strong financial plan, ensuring wise stewardship of current donor funds, and achieving long-term sustainability and independence. We're really focused on maintaining the high-quality programs that we have now, like I mentioned before, WYO Wonders, Bookmark and Beyond, Educator of the Year, and our professional development. So, quick progress report. In August of 2023, we updated and rebranded our curriculum, which is named WYO Wonders. It was released in 2019. It was developed beginning in 2015. Took all those years to build. It was first started under the Wyoming Stewardship Project, which was a great name for it at the time. But we realized we needed we needed an update to it to really encompass the creativity, the adventure, the possibility of the wonders of Wyoming, which we believe are our core heritage industries. Since then, we've seen incremental growth in downloads and access and usage of it, which it's been very fruitful so far. Our state presence is growing. In school year 24-25, Wyo Wonders was used in 188 classrooms around the state. It was used in all 23 counties for the first time. So we are heavily focused on retaining that fact. It's imperative that we retain usage in all 23 counties. This past fall semester, we set a record for surveys of usage of our curriculum in 90 classrooms. So we're very excited about that and hoping to carry that momentum into this spring semester. Usability among teachers, our retention rate is hard, and that's our biggest hurdle right now. There's a revolving door in classrooms around the state. That's not just a Wyoming problem, it's national. Teachers retiring, moving, whatever. So we're working really hard right now to make sure that with administrators and legislators around the state to ensure the Wyo Wonders is retained in classrooms, whether it's countywide, school district-wide, or school-wide, okay? Our lessons clearly show how it aligns with state standards. So that makes it really easy to use, easy for teachers to understand, to check off standards and things that they need for YTOP testing and such. Our team of advocates are there for classroom teachers and homeschool teachers. So we have the resources there for teachers if they need it. Professional development, as I mentioned, is a big focus for us. We host 3 summer workshops every year, and I'm very proud of these. They are 2-day workshops. 1 day is industry immersion. So we give the teachers an industry immersion in a certain community around the state, whether it's ag, energy, or recreation or tourism. The ideal situation is sending them to an outfit where one or multiple of these industries coincide, right? The second day is classroom coaching. It's professional development. It's making sure these teachers are comfortable using the curriculum, teaching lessons, things of that nature. Teachers do this for free because of our donor support. We offer them a stipend to attend for the miles that they travel to attend, but we also reimburse them for their UW and PTSB credits. We've had some momentum lately with sportsmen and outfitter groups. We've worked with the Dallas Safari Club in Casper, local hunters and conservation-minded donors through our generous commissioner tag auctions. And in 2024, we've hosted a summer workshop at Carrot Creek Pheasant Farm in Sundance to highlight how outfitting contributes to the state's economy. So collaboration for our wildlife curriculum is a major milestone and goal of ours right now. We're currently updating and revising our curriculum. It's the first time it's happened since 2019 when it was released. It's going to take all year long to do it. Our education team's working hard right now. They've gotten through grade 3 in agriculture, and we're going to progressively work through that through the calendar year. In December of 25, we met with the NBSC board and members and staff to discuss a future partnership and collaboration. Right now, we have 7 lessons in our curriculum that directly reference the Game and Fish Department and reinforce its role in wildlife and land management. And it's critical that we maintain the high level of accuracy of data and information in the curriculum. My one request to you all is that we work together, continue to work together with the department or somebody from the staff and maintain a high level of accuracy in those lessons. And we can even evolve and create more lessons to help kids with wildlife and rangeland management, et cetera. I have a list of our outdoor recreation and tourism lessons that include the game and fish, but they're in 2nd through 5th grade. So very proud of that. Lastly, I want to talk about our Game and Fish Commissioner tag history. This commission has been very generous over the years and has helped us immensely with their donation of commissioner tags. It has been a boost financially for us, and we rely heavily on those funds, and they help us act on our mission and continue to grow. And we've seen history all the way back to 2019. In 2019 and 2020, we raised $20,000 each. In 2022 and 23, Commissioner Galen Bird donated passes or tags to us. In 22, we raised $25,000. In 2023, we raised $38,000. 2024, we did not receive a tag. But in 2025, Commissioner Bell donated a tag to us, and we raised $32,050. And then I learned 2 weeks ago, one of my best friends who helps out guide for the Wagon Hound guided that hunt and harvested a successful elk with that tag. So that was very full circle for me and made me very happy. This year, Commissioner Masterson donated a tag to us. And our auction starts on February 23rd and ends March 1st. The auction has become a pinnacle for us in the spring to generate funds for us to kick us off into the calendar year. We're very grateful for the Game and Fish for partnering in environmental stewardship, supporting our mission and programs, and for everything that you do for Wyoming wildlife and range management. Our websites are wyaitc.org and wyowonders.org. And lastly, I'm just so very thankful and grateful for this time. I hope to continue our relationship moving forward. And with that, I leave for any questions.
Comments, questions? No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, anyone either online or in the audience with comments or questions from the public? No one online? Anyone here? Okay, well, with that being said, I will take a motion, or I guess I should ask anything else from the commission?
Tackle a couple items for tomorrow.
Someone stab him. All right, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? There we go.